Hypervigilance. In here, time passed extremely slowly. If not for the feeling of loneliness, the people in the tower would have forgotten about the passage of time long ago. This was one of the many holy cultivation places on the Arad continent. At the top of the tower, which shot into the high clouds, there was a weary-faced white-haired swordsman. On his back, he carried all kinds of blades, everyone having a time-weary presence, as if they each had an ancient story and a glorious name which was later erased by the history. He raised his head and looked out of the window. The sky outside the window had been dyed red by the evening clouds in the setting sun. Soon, night would fall. But inside the tower, it was always dim and gloomy regardless if it was day or night. It felt like hell without a thread of warmth in it. On the continent, there was a legend about the blade master Soldorus, who was the most ancient and most powerful swordsman on this continent. Soldorus had understood the ultimate meaning and essence of sword. At this moment in the Tower of Despair, this blade master encountered the toughest opponent in history. Is there an end to the path of the sword? In the interlacing sword energies, a lazy-looking young man stood before the blade master with a wood stick in his hand. It seemed like he had just picked it up from the ground casually. Yes, this young man was about to battle the most ancient and most powerful blade master Soldorus from the legends with a wood stick. Godly Sword Yang was a name that many people on the continent had never heard of before. But after they heard it, they would never forget it. Your stance is wavering just from my question. That's no good, Soldorus called back the devil sword Claris and said with a smile. Sorry, I just had an old thought cross my head. An end to the path of the sword. The young man with the wooden stick sheathed his sword and fell deep in thought. Seeing this, Soldorus looked resigned, wondering why he brought up this question. While Yang was still in a daze, Soldorus became a bit embarrassed. Did I ask a useless question? There really is no answer, as it is a level that even you have not reached. No. There's an answer. Yang finally snapped back to reality. There are many swordsmen who have reached our level now, and we may no longer be the best swordsmen. A level that even we haven't reached, the path to the next level may open to someone out there. You mean, yes, I can sense it. Although we have already attained a high level of strength, there's so much more left for us to learn. We simply just can't see it. Yes, there was no end in the path of sword. One word's elucidation filled with truth points to the birthless, showing nature's mystery. Great Dao returns to the origin. Some people understood Dao while others understood the laws of nature. In the Nalan family before his eyes, he seemed to see the sage's faction in the cave of Slanting Moon and 3 Stars. He seemed to see the top of the Forbidden City in that full moon night in the duel. He seemed to see the sword energies sweeping around the tall mountain Shu in the Legend of Sword and Legend. He seemed to see the world-destroying move on Sanfen Field in the Wind and Cloud. Nalan Hongyu suddenly opened his eyes. Lifting the long sword which had been lying beside him quietly, his eyes were as deep and bright as lakes. Then, he stood up. In a blur, the streaks of true sword spirits seemed to overlap with him and then combined into one. On the top of the Tower of Despair, while Soldorus and Godly Sword Yang were talking, a white-haired swordsman stepped into the tower. These two were not surprised, since lately, many adventurers, players, had come to challenge them to obtain the breakthrough. It was the best place for the players to test and improve their sword techniques. But almost all the challengers ended in failure. However, they found that the swordsman before them was different. Because they saw in the ancient eyes of the challenger a total understanding of everything in the world. Understanding one law leads to the understanding of all laws. It is indeed true. With his right hand resting on the long sword hanging on his belt, Nalan Hongyu felt that the previous deep and mysterious sword techniques now looked very simple in this instant. Even the newly learned sword techniques looked simple now. The sword was unsheathed. At this moment, the dim and gloomy Tower of Despair was lit up by this sword beam. The radiance in this instant was as bright as the flower blooming in the dawn. Blade Master Soldorus had heat in his eyes, and the spiritual light in his eyes burned hot. His hand that was rested on the sword handle grasped it subconsciously, he knew what it meant. The next level of sword is fascinating, Blade Master Soldorus, the most ancient and most powerful swordsman on the continent, lamented as he watched his opponent leave. A moment ago, he lost. Yes, these adventurers, players, had surpassed them. For these adventurers, players, the legendary existences had been too lofty for them to reach. But now, the latter had to look up at them. No one knew how it felt, but for the people who spent all their lives on the pursuit of Sword Deo, failures might not be a bad thing. It's not easy to reach the level that doesn't have a name yet, it might take a lifetime. Hey, don't you think that it's time to name this level, just like Blade Master or Grand Master? Looking at his opponent who was leaving, Blade Master Soldorus said slowly. What do you think about Omni Blade? Doesn't that name sound too grand? After all, no one can be sure if there's an end in the path of sword. What should we name the level above that then? We can worry about that when it comes to it. A hearty and sincere laughter sounded in the Tower of Despair. They saw a brand new level. Perhaps they had been waiting for this moment for a long time. This was probably the Omni Blade in their eyes. In the Yuanyang City shop. Hey. In the voice channel of this team, Zhongwu said, I'll add a main carry into our team. Prompt, Nalan Hongyu joined the challenge team. At this moment, the challenge team had spent a lot of time to fight the small elite monsters. With a blood shower, the last Tog finally fell. No one could make a tiny mistake in this extremely difficult battle. At this moment, Anton opened its huge mouth. The worst nightmare came. The monster flying out from Anton's mouth had a physical body tougher than the Tog's. Covered all over by armor made up of energy crystals, this monster made the Tog look like a guardian dog. This was the final boss that was guarding the source of black smoke. When the players saw it, it vanished. Then, it reappeared in the crowd while horrifying lightning energy exploded around the players. No one dared to doubt its power, its destructive lightning bolts could kill anyone they touched. At this moment, like the first streak of light that was tearing open the chaos and separating the sky from the earth, a sword beam spread out like wings behind Nalan Hongyu as if it was a sword soul. The highest level of known sword technique bloomed without reserve at this moment. Just as the saying understanding one law leads to an understanding of all laws went, he could easily unleash the essence of such a profound and complex sword technique. Hypervigilance. Attacked by this pure sword beam, the master of the destructive lightning bolts was instantly frozen in the midair by a horrifying sword force without the ability to fight back. The lightning bolts covering the sky instantly scattered. My goodness! This play that instantly freezes the boss, DPS. DPS. The wave of sword energies shot into the monster's body like rivers pouring into the sea, and even the thick armor condensed by energy crystals couldn't block them. The earth-shaking furious roars resonated in the entire sea area. Finally, the thick and widespread smoke retreated from the vast ocean. Then, the giant prehistoric turtle was revealed before them again. They successfully finished taking down the source of black smoke. We passed. We finally passed. So amazing, Zhang Xiaoyu exclaimed while eating her peach. What equipment do you guys have now? Obviously, she hadn't played the game for a long time. Randomly, Nalan Mingxiu clicked on Zhongwu's profile and chose a piece of equipment. Plus 12 Spirit Furious Rampage Boots. Level requirement, Level 65 plus 12 Dragon Spirit, Short Sword level requirement, Level 80 plus 12. While Nalan Mingxiu explained the equipment, the people suddenly saw a strange phenomenon on their screens. The huge turtle raised its giant head and roared furiously, shaking its head wildly afterward. Without the protection of the monsters, Anton knew that the situation was dangerous for it and couldn't allow these people to stay on its head anymore. Be careful! The players leaped down like huge birds from its mountain-like head and landed on its huge continent-sized body. Do you remember the teams you're in? Zhongwu yelled, Team 1 and Team 2. Durable leg. Team 3 and Team 4. Shaking battleground. The moment he said it, he saw the huge volcano on the head on this monster spewing out flames further away. It would erupt at any moment. When the volcano in this ancient prehistoric huge beast erupted, if people lingered at the foot of the mountain, the result would be obvious. Almost at the same time, bright blue lights lit up in the giant cannons on the huge battleship named Noble Sky. They were gathering energy to launch the cooling radiation waves. At this moment, the ocean water around the huge battleship in the distance suddenly surged up. From the huge ocean waves shot out countless monsters, and Noble Sky was their first target. Team 5, return to the battleship and guard the cannons. The teams got to their respective jobs smoothly. Among the 5 teams, Team 1 and Team 2 were the most powerful, Team 3 and Team 4 were comparatively weaker, and Team 5 consisted of players who had defensive classes, and they stayed behind on the battleship to guard against the ocean beasts that were swarming up. Anton lifted its legs lightly, and the whole land and ocean shook. Even when the soldiers got onto its body, they were shaken off easily. Anton's body was so huge, yet its moves were so agile. It had absorbed enough energy from the energy center. Since the players couldn't retrieve the energy from Anton, they must destroy its joints to pave way for the final attacks from the main force. The purpose of Shaking Battleground was to destroy Anton's joints. Durable leg, as the name indicated, meant Anton's legs. Only after they cut off all its 4 legs, which were as huge as skyscraping pillars, could they completely destroy its mobility. The players could see that the more powerful monsters were guarding these places. They had evolved into human forms after continuous growth. Looking from the distance, the players could see the ocean water only reached the back of Anton's feet. Above its feet, a female demon dressed in black armor and holding a long sword in her hand soared up into the high sky with her wings of flame spread out, looking down coldly at the intruders. Of course, most of the monsters didn't belong to the demon clan, but they looked almost the same to humans. On the ground, scorched dry corpses of the butchered Imperial army lay everywhere. The monster engulfed in blazing flames waved the huge staff in her hand, and the dry corpses woke up. Covered in horrifying blazing lava flames, the corpses howled wildly and charged at the adventurers. At this moment, Anton's huge mouth opened again, and the black smoke flying from its mouth spread out into the whole world. Glancing at the battleship cannons, Zhongwu slashed out his sword, and the sword energies shattered the monster before him. Team 5. Are the cannons on the battleship ready yet? Just right before the volcano erupted, several bright light beams shot out from all directions above the dark ocean and crashed onto the huge volcano that was about to erupt. The crimson volcano was gradually covered in a layer of pale blue frost and ice. The cannons on the battleship are safe. Suppress the black smoke now. Then, use the battleship cannons again. Even with their current combat force, the players must act with extreme caution. If the black smoke spread to them, and they had to fight the monsters in the poisonous black smoke, the results would be disastrous. After all, their enemy wasn't just any old ordinary monster but the 7th Apostle. With its powerful healing abilities, Anton could recover with great speed from any serious injuries. Meanwhile, the monsters seemed endless as they swarmed up. Before Team 1 and Team 2 finished their challenge targets, the other teams must suppress and attack the places where Anton was recovering and healing, including the shaking battleground. Meanwhile, they must guard the battleship cannons and be ready to help when Team 1 and Team 2 might need them. During the process, if one team made a mistake leading to either the spreading of black smoke or the volcano eruption, the coordination of the teams would collapse. Illusion Sword Dance. On the huge battleship, Illusion Sword Dance was used. The players' sword techniques were much better than when they were in the early stages. Like doppelgangers and phantoms, the earth-shaking sword waves and countless sword shadows shattered the surging currents of monsters. Acura Spirit Crescent. Above the shaking battleground that was full of lava, space cracked open, and a black demon with horns stepped out from it. Flames of war burned all over Anton's huge body, and all the teams were engaged in fierce battles. This battle lasted almost 1 hour. After all, the system version had a different challenge time from that in the original version. Everyone remained highly concentrated and suppressed the places on Anton's body that they were in charge of again and again despite Anton's powerful healing abilities. Therefore, the most powerful Team 1 and Team 2 could attack without being interrupted. Finally, as the radiant flames fell from the sky, the monster guarding the durable leg finally fell to the ground with unwilling howls. For the first time, the most powerful adventurers revealed their true powers in front of the horrifying monster and everyone else. In the distance, the light beams shooting out from the battleship cannons engulfed the whole night sky. This moment was absolutely brilliant. As the pride of the people of Empyrean, this huge mecha from the alternate space launched its most glorious attack. Without the protection of its coexisting monsters, Anton received attacks from the Empyrean navy and the teams of adventurers. The explosive flames at the joints of the turtle legs and the spraying lava swept up dust and smoke all over the sky. Huge waves surged up from all directions. Despite its great power, the seventh apostle's 4 huge legs finally collapsed with half of its body sinking into the ocean. Returning to noble sky, the tired adventurers sat on the deck to rest without putting down their weapons. Ocean breeze dried the sweat and blood on their faces, but they didn't have time to wipe them off. Take the time to get some rest. A fiercer battle will come soon. Instead of feeling relaxed after the fierce battle, the people on the battleship looked grim as if a storm would come. The huge gusts swept up surging waves from the sea and violently crashed them onto the sides of the battleship, spraying water over the rails on the ship. Looking into the distance, the players examined the core area on Anton after its huge legs were cut off. In the core area, the tall black volcano was now engulfed by an invisible energy shield. Any outside attacks would be blocked. It meant that they had to enter the volcano to destroy Anton's core and annihilate Anton. If they entered it, the adventurers wouldn't receive any aid from the outside. Of course, even without the protective energy shield, Anton's turtle shell was enough to block attacks from the outside. After all, it had only 4 legs exposed to the air. Besides, Anton's head wasn't its vital organ, and it was useless to attack it. Therefore, the first thing that the challenge team must do was entering the energy center and destroy the energy transmission that Anton used to form the protective energy shield for the black volcano. This way, they could enter the interior of the black volcano, which would lead them to its vital part. The second step was suppressing the respawning center inside Anton to stop the respawning monsters and suppress the self-healing of the energy center. The respawning center produced all kinds of monsters and accelerated the self-healing in Anton's eyes. They were like parasites in its body. Once the energy center continued to heal itself, the monsters inside the black volcano would have enough energy to support them and thus would be invincible to any attacks. The chains of events were tightly linked. When the other teams were in position, it was time to enter the black volcano. There were 5 teams, and 4 of them would try to create the best opportunity for the most powerful team to enter the black volcano. It was the core idea of the whole battle plan. After the road to the black volcano was opened, the 5 teams were reorganized. The most powerful members of Team 1 and Team 2 gathered in one team. It looks complicated, Song Qing Feng and others who were watching from behind gasped, I feel dizzy just watching you guys do it. Is this monster so difficult to beat? Yet, Zhang Xiaoyu ate her peach and said, in the past, we only met zombie king or headless knights which were killed by a few pokes. We only needed some battle skills at most. But this battle needs such complex cooperation between different teams as you guys take on different enemies. She rubbed her tired eyes. Her beautiful big eyes felt dizzy as she watched the complex gameplay. Sister Su, do you understand what's going on? At this moment, Su Tianji, who was also watching from behind, felt dizzy too. I'm finished. I feel like I can't understand these games now. Am I getting old? Isn't it simple? Beside them, Xiao Yul summarized in a loud voice, with the help of the 4 teams that were chilling, the top figures in Team 1 finally killed their way into the core of this big turtle. Hey! The others brightened with sudden understanding. Zhang Xiaoyu said, "You mean we've been watching Sister Shui chilling on the side?" Nalan Mingxiu's pretty face darkened. "What chilling?" Lan Yan was displeased. "My lady killed the Tog and several monsters who were guarding different places." Then, she rolled her eyes at Xiao Yulv and said, "You spout nothing but nonsense, it serves you right that you can't play." Instantly, Xiao Yulv turned red and yelled, the shop owner told me that I will soon get to play. When you're allowed to play, a new expansion will be released. You can't even support others and chill on the side." Lan Yan said, "Be satisfied as a cloud player." "Ah!" Xiao Yulv howled pathetically, feeling cold inside. While they bickered, the fight against Anton came to the most important moment. A pale blue energy light from the black volcano slowly fell from the sky. He had dark golden skin and white long hair which stood up on end with the surging energy. His body emitted overwhelming energy. Standing before him, Nalan Hongyu and the others felt like the difference between their own energy and their opponent's energy was like the difference between the light of fireflies and that of the full moon. "Give up resisting." When he opened his mouth, Anton also opened its mouth. Like thunder, they said at the same time, "Give up resisting." Violent flames shot out from the underground. Everything seemed to be in his control. IRM, 11 before he could finish. Hypervigilance. F***CK. Again. Awesome. Keep on attacking. Instantly, all the attacks transformed into a horrifying storm and devoured their enemy. Wave I. Ultimate Slay, Tempest. Apocalypse. Hey! The boss stood still and didn't move a finger, but the heroic-looking players who had just used hypervigilance and Wave I were all lying on the ground. The healer who still had one light orb to cast looked at the boss in the eye in stupefaction. Hey! Everything was silent around them. The volcano exploded. Nalan Mingxiu, who was still suppressing energy, saw a male healer, the only survivor, racing out from the volcano and yelling, "The volcano exploded!" Boom! The land shook violently. Behind him, an extremely thick beam of lava erupted from the opening of the volcano and shot into the sky. Horrifying volcano clouds covered the entire sky as lava fell from above like a world-destroying meteorite shower. Lava flew everywhere through the crevices on its body. The turtle shell was so hot inside and outside that it was impossible to stand anywhere on it. Ocean waves surged up high while Anton's four legs slowly propped it up from the bottom of the ocean, and its dim eyes lit up like stars in the night sky, emitting intense and hot firelights. Chapter 854 Will the various great Dao help me pass Anton? Don't look at a gene's eye. At the energy transmission center inside Anton, the huge monster who was guarding this place opened the evil eye in its belly, and one of the members was slow to react and looked at the huge eye. He instantly died. At the same time, the monster's injuries were all healed. The energy center also exploded. The raid failed. Once. Twice. 3 times. Looking at the words on the screen, they all fell silent. Prompt: Your game time is up, do you want to borrow time? No. Everyone was fatigued. If they continue raiding, their state would further deteriorate. Let's go then. The audience behind them also left. The Anton raid is quite difficult. They raided it for a long time before today, and they spent a whole day on it today. However, they still couldn't pass it. While the people were talking about it, the players who were in the raid got offline. Nalan Hongyu took out his communication jade and clicked on QQ before saying, "Today, everyone is tired. Let's take a break." No. Zhongwu said furiously, "With more practice, we will surely succeed." Enough. Gu Tingyun said, "The teams are obviously not in their best state. Let's take a break." The people in the group chat fell silent for a while. No. What happened when you guys were in the volcano? In the real world, some of the team members were warriors whose cultivation strengths had reached the Saint Warrior realm, which was equivalent to the Saint level, and there was a healer with perfect equipment. How come you failed so many times? What difficulties does the volcano pose? Nalan Mingxiu asked. It's impossible to defeat the dungeon. The boss moves so fast that it's like it's teleporting, I can't even see it clearly. Zhongwu said, besides, the entire black volcano including the monsters and lava is completely in its control. Facing constant lava eruptions and all kinds of elite monsters, we were fighting in very bad terrain and the situation was very disadvantageous. Elite monsters were weaker, but even Tog was an elite monster. In the Anton raid in the original version, lava eruptions could only be seen in the black volcano. But in the system version, the monster was the same one, so it knew all the skills. Can't we attack with area of effects spells? No. This attack reflection will affect everyone. If one member attacks it with an area of effects spell, the whole party will be wiped out. The group chat fell silent again. Even the top masters with the best equipment couldn't pass it. Is this the power that a great god possesses? We can't attack it at all. Nalan Mingxiu asked. Not exactly, Nalan Hongwu recalled the prior scenes and said, it has an energy shield around it, and the shield opens when it attacks. But it opens too fast, and I only got to hit it once by accident. In other words, Nalan Mingxiu said, you can only attack the moment it launches its own attack, you can't be earlier or later than that, or you'll be killed by your own attacks. If they faced an ordinary master and had to attack him at the same time as him, every one of them could achieve it with ease. But what if they were facing a powerful god? It was impossible to do that. But if they didn't attack, they would be killed. With the great difference between the huge energy in Anton and that in humans, breaking the shield by force was even more unrealistic. In the previous raids and group raids, they could win with strategies and tactics. But in this raid, there were no shortcuts. They could only rely on their real strength and battle skills. If I practice more, I should manage it, Nalan Hongwu said after a moment of silence. Old Ghost Nalan, didn't you just return to the game? How come you're so powerful? Zhongwu asked in surprise. Then, his heart sank, knowing that he was surpassed again. I made a breakthrough lately and obtained lots of inspiration in ideas and battle skills. Nalan Hongwu brandished his blade in his own courtyard. I have a feeling of entering micro, as the shop owner said. Entering micro? Zhongwu said in surprise, isn't it some nonsense that the shop owner sprouted when he told the story named Terror Infinity? He said that the people who reach the 4th level of the genetic lock, which is entering micro, would be existences as great as gods, and people reaching the 5th level of genetic lock would be sages. It might be nonsense, Nalan Mingxiu said, but I think there's a point in his crude theory. After all, if one reaches a new realm, it's a bit unreasonable to assume that his battle skills and control ability would still stay at the mortal level. Old Ghost Nalan, Zhongwu asked Nalan Hongwu, how did you obtain the breakthrough? This, Nalan Hongwu thought for a moment. It's hard to describe. It's a type of accumulation, Nalan Hongwu said thoughtfully, it's like a full dam. When someone opens it one day, the water pours out naturally. Now, he could understand any moves from any system swiftly. Everyone, go home and think about it, Zhongwu said, let's pause the raid for now. At least for now, he couldn't think of a better solution but to improve himself. During this period, everyone worked hard to obtain a breakthrough. Battler skills. Entering micro. Heavenly sword. Metaphysical sword rises above anyone in history, worshipped by all swords. In one quiet chamber in Yuanyang City, Zhongwu, a middle-aged warrior, sat down cross-legged and calmed his mind. His accumulation wasn't as great as that of Nalan Hongwu. He had a vague understanding which was like the flash of spiritual light that he had obtained when he sat before the platform of that true immortal who was giving the lecture on Dao in the Mountain of Mind and Heart. However, All laws of nature, including the doctrines in Confucianism, Buddhism, and Daoism, and the wondrous truths, were like flowers in the mist and moon in the water. But now, he felt different. The doctrines of heaven and earth and all kinds of wondrous truths, could they allow them to achieve the way of immortality? Sun Wukong didn't need any great Dao or wondrous truths, since he had his own Dao in his heart. There are 3,000 great Dao, and one must choose one to follow. What Zhongwu urgently needed now wasn't all kinds of laws of nature, but his own Dao. If so, then he would like to ask, all kinds of great Dao, can any of you help me pass Anton? Crack! Suddenly, a storm of wind and thunder rose in the sky above Yuanyang City. The mountain of mind and heart. Mind and heart were one thing, and the slanting moon and 3 stars represented the heart as well. He didn't know how much time passed. The highest excellence is like that of water, as shown in the legend of Sword and Fairy. All kinds of realms were reflected in his heart. But his heart was as empty as void. I see, he slowly stood up in the quiet chamber. In the game Underfoot Town, after the era of destruction, everything in the previous world was destroyed, including the humans living there. Now, the main city had been moved from Hendenmire to Underfoot Town in another world. GSD, the first trainer of all slayers, had left the small alley in the back street long ago. The sword should never hesitate. A sword may conquer the flesh, but only your heart may conquer the mind. The familiar voice echoed in his ears. A swordsman with his eyes covered happened to enter the guild zone and seemed to see the familiar figure of the white-haired old swordsman, whose voice sounded as open-minded as before but unfamiliar at the same time. Did you see me in another world? I can feel his presence from you, young man. What kind of a person was he? The open-minded old swordsman who had taught all the slayers had also died in that catastrophe. The short white-haired old man hesitated for a moment. Suddenly, the whole world seemed to be devoured by darkness. Only a lightning bolt shot up. In this instant, he seemed to see a long sword tearing open the sky and descending to the world like a god. But in the next moment, the lightning bolt was withdrawn, as if this move was controlled by him with his will. The thunder god has descended. He has surpassed us. Looking at the adventurer who was walking away, the old man seemed to be murmuring feelingly to his other self in another world, "You must be very happy." Anton challenged team, "It's time to gather." Mr. Fang had just come down from upstairs when he saw the group, both young and old, walking together. Their fierce presence seemed to be able to force gods and Buddhas to retreat. "What are you guys doing?" "Raid." "Anton." "They are a group that is doing the Anton raid." Su Tianji walked past them to buy a mug of milk tea, and she said, "Lately, they have been working hard to obtain breakthroughs in order to raid Anton. I can't talk to you now, I need to go and watch the raid." With that said, she walked over to watch with a mug of milk tea in her hand. "Ah!" Mr. Fang looked in Su Tianji's direction and glanced at these people. "How come you're so passionate about a raid?" "Aya! Scummy shop owner, you know nothing." Walking past him, Lan Yan rolled her eyes at him contemptuously. Then, she hurried over to watch as well. At this moment, the players again entered this ocean, and their auras and the glints in their eyes were totally different from before. "Who are in Team 1, the one going to the volcano?" While watching from behind, Su Tianji asked this question. "I know Senior Nalan and Zhongwu are going." "Who are the Avenger and the Healer?" On the screen were an Avenger dressed in a black military uniform and a Crusader dressed in a Snow Realm fox fur coat. The Avenger is the black uncle who worked together with first champion Rosenrain in the tournament, Lan Yan said. The Healer is Luo Piaoling, the mild-tempered blonde man from the Ultimate West Realm. I thought he played as a Slayer. He's been playing the game all the time and has many alt accounts. Indeed. As mentioned before, after Anton's legs were cut off, a huge protective energy shield appeared around the vast continent like a turtle shell, and no attack could breach it. The adventurers had to fight their way into it and destroy the energy supply before damaging its core. It would be like Sun Wukong entering a demon's belly as a fly and destroying its bodily functions. Su Tianji stood behind Nalan Mingxiu and watched the game. On the screen, the continent-like turtle shell on Anton's back had a totally different look. This was the inner layer of the turtle shell made of lava. The players came here through the joints in the legs. With lava flowing, it wasn't too dim in this place. It looked like an underground world full of lava and flames. Meanwhile, people saw thick and ugly meridians and some fiery red huge eggs in incubation. Looking down from the high sky, they saw a layer of pale blue and almost transparent energy light engulfing the huge volcano. Outside the energy shield, the layer of thick grey rocks protected Anton's limbs and head like armor. The energy shield protected the dark red and hot summit and its core. Under the volcano, the adventurers advanced toward the source of the energy shield. They must find the meridian point which transmitted the energy and block it, like cutting off qi by pressing on an A-cup ointment. In fact, the adventurers didn't need to search for it since many monsters guarded this place. The two-headed monster with horizontal horns and a huge eye in its belly drew everyone's attention. Perhaps since it had put all its energy into defense, its defensive abilities were horribly high. Only when it attacked did its defense lower. The eye in the monster's belly suddenly opened, and the blinding evil light almost turned everything in the underground space heated and white. A sword beam fell on it and was absorbed completely without a sound. Don't look at it in the eye. Instantly, everyone, even those who were in the process of attacking, had to turn around even though it meant that they had to take the monster's attacks. Anyone who saw the evil light even if they didn't look at the eye would instantly die. When the light dimmed, a figure dashed over like a swift wind and landed before the monster in the blink of an eye. Healer. Sun, light orb. Jessica controlled a female priest and chanted. As if a hole appeared in the sky, golden light fell, and she soared up. The golden light fell like sunshine. It was the light from God. At this moment, everyone was bathed in the golden light, and a horrifying godly power surged in their bodies. Meanwhile, Nalan Mingxiu stood before the monster. Space-time cutter. Opening its huge arms which looked like iron pincers, the monster lunged at her viciously. However, the moment that it charged up, space shattered and Nalan Mingxiu stepped into the void with perfect timing. Tricked it. Hypervigilance. A pure sword beam flashed, and the monster's body, including the flowing energy in its body, was frozen. Verdant blast. Ultimate slay, Tempest. Team 3 and Team 4 have almost suppressed the energy. Team 1, get ready to get up the mountain. Some time later, the huge energy shield that was protecting the black volcano evaporated with the disappearance of the energy source. Now, the four players stepped across the boundary and climbed onto the black volcano in the center of Anton's back. The other teams guarded the outer range of the volcano. Under the support of Anton's huge reservoirs of energy, the monsters that they killed would respawn, and the meridians that they had destroyed would recover. The other players waited for the energy to gather again and the monsters to respawn. Then, they would kill the monster and cut off the transmission of energy again. Inside the black volcano with the pungent smell of sulfur filling the scorched air, it was hotter than any other place, and it felt as if the air could burn anyone in it. On the ground were puddles of lava. All the power of the blazing flames and everything else was derived from the interior of the volcano. Lava flowed, golden lightning flashes tore open the darkness, and the surging power of flames filled this space. Even an ordinary god would think that he saw a vast ocean when seeing this horrifyingly huge power. When the figure engulfed in the protective energy shield of flashing lightning snakes soared up into the sky and looked down on the intruders with chilly murderous spirit in its eyes, the final battle began. I'm the last successor of Odin, King of Tardans. The figure before the players roared, and Anton's extremely huge body also let out earth-shaking noises. Omnipotent Matka. It shared one mind with Anton, but they had different bodies. In other words, it was Anton. With it guarding the place, no one could pass. The blue energy shield around its body condensed the huge reservoirs of energy that Anton had absorbed for countless years. No one could breach it from the outside. Any attack would activate powerful energy reflection which would lead to the annihilation of everything around it. There was no way to dodge it, and no one could escape from it in any way. Chapter 856 The Fall of Anton. At this moment, a group of people stood behind Nalan Hongyu and observed the scorched land on his screen. Nalan Hongyu unsheathed the sword that was hanging on his belt with one finger, and the slim frosty light beam that could bring chills to the bones was reflected in everyone's eyes. His white hair danced in the wind with his flapping black robe, and the icy light beam tore open the void like a flying snowflake. Then, the pure sword energies turned into 5 godly swords that were hovering behind him in the air. The lightning bolts formed a rotating circle, and Zhongwu closed his eyes lightly with the thunder sword in his hand. In the darkness, slim lightning bolts spread around and illuminated his body, turning his hair into thunder threads and making his body look like a piece of blue jade. The thunder resonated across the whole landmass. Boom! With a huge earth-shaking noise, the land shattered. In the darkness, a pair of horrifying eyes lit up, and a terrifying demon slowly stood up. Even lava could do nothing to such a powerful body. The Omni-Blade, Indra, and Immortal stood together. This scene was like the war among gods. The 3 adventurers took the positions of heaven, earth, and man, surrounding Matka. At this moment, Matka hovered in midair with its arms crossing before its chest. Its ancient staff hovered behind it like a shadow. Like an ancient god, it looked down at the weak bugs that dared to mess with it. However, in the blink of an eye, it vanished on the spot. The next moment, a horrifying gust crashed toward Nalan Hongyu from behind. Without warning, the punch smashed onto Nalan Hongyu's back viciously like a huge cannonball even though Nalan Hongyu had spread his powerful sword energies around him. Crack! With an explosive noise, the air exploded, and Nalan Hongyu was sent flying. In the next moment, another blue light flashed behind Nalan Hongyu. Be careful! Even the audience yelled in astonishment. The move was so fast that no one could react. However, Nalan Hongyu adjusted his position in midair and put his hand on the sword handle. Dust rose from the ground behind him and formed a light twirling wind. Almost at the same time when Matka moved, a twirling bolt of sword energy shot out with ear-grating sword whistle. The slash was so fast that it didn't even leave after images. Pierce! Matka instantly took several steps back. Only the dust flying up from the ground and the shallow bloody line on its arm showed that Nalan Hongyu had unleashed a sword attack. So fast! He hit the target. With a pause of steps, Matka disappeared again and reappeared before Zhongwu in the next instant. The moment that its fist hit Zhongwu's chest, lightning bolts shot up into the sky and seemed to cut a deep line in space. Hit the target again. Although Zhongwu was also wounded, he attacked as fast as a lightning flash and didn't make a single mistake, exciting everyone in the audience even though it was only one strike. They had hit it twice consecutively. On the black volcano, blue energy glares flashed on the land full of dust while fist, sword, and claw collided at lightning speed. They moved so fast that the audience felt chills running down their spines. The screen was filled with sword flashes and thunderbolts. They looked chaotic, but each strike was ultimately fast and extremely wonderful. At this moment, a huge portal lit up on the ground around them while countless huge eggs that were jumping were transported here. The eggs in the area suddenly cracked open and spawned countless monsters that swarmed toward the intruding adventurers. Suppress the respawning center! Zhongwu yelled, issuing instructions while attacking the volcano. When these monsters lunged at them, lava flowed all over the ground beneath their feet in just a few seconds. Matka was among these monsters. They must kill these monsters. But if their attacks shot on the energy shield by mistake, then each and every one of them would face an unavoidable fatal strike in the next moment. One mage monster put its staff onto the ground. Instantly, lava erupted from the underground like a volcano eruption. It further decreased the area for the adventurers where they could set their foot on. In one glance, the audience found that there seemed to be no place for them to stand on. They were cornered under the attacks from these powerful monsters and Matka. The most concerning thing for them was Matka's speed, which was even faster than the limitation set by time and space. Instantly, no one seemed to be able to strike back. Finished, even the audience were frightened by the scene. They will be wiped out again. What's wrong with the respawning center? They seem to have insufficient DPS, so TNG watched other players' screens for a while and came back. Energy Center, respawning center, and Infection Center were keys to decreasing the power of Matka in the volcano. If the other 4 teams made a mistake in suppressing those places, the team in the volcano would face a catastrophe. Boom! When the punch came, it seemed like even a god couldn't react fast enough to block it. Zhongwu was heavily smashed into the lava. If not for the protective thunderbolts, he would have been turned into ashes instantly. Almost at the same time, the 3 figures on the screen flew backward as if they had been struck at the same time. They didn't even have time to attack the small monsters, let alone the boss. What should they do? A drop of cold sweat fell. They can't even defeat it in this situation. In this situation, I guess no one can reverse the momentum, I'll do it. At this moment, Nalan Hungui roared furiously. He was almost knocked out by the heavy blow. After forcing himself to snap back to his senses, countless scenes and sword techniques flashed across his mind. He learned Sword 23 from the Wind and Cloud. He learned the Heavenly Sword from No Name. Seeing the magnificence of the sword strike on that night, he began to realize that swordsmanship was the art to continuously challenge one's own limit. He had the total understanding when he stood in the sage's faction in the mountain of mind and heart. After the breakthrough, he had been like an embryo of the godly sword with a few impurities which couldn't be removed with ease. However, in this awe-inspiring battle, the godly sword was tempered and forged countless times by water and fire. Ha! All the previous sword techniques that he had learned seemed to merge together in total understanding, washing out the last bit of impurities. While he was cornered by the attacks without any ability to fight back, the 5 godly swords behind him suddenly flew out automatically. In the next moment, 10,000 sword energies shot out together. Hypervigilance. Is he giving up? It must be noted that multiple attacks would accidentally hit Matka's energy shield, which would wipe out the whole team, not just him. However, everyone saw each sword accurately piercing each monster's chest as if they were controlled by a god. The aims were impeccable. My goodness! You guys hurry up and suppress the respawns. The volcano site is steady now. The audience hurried to report the situation. Hurry! Nalan Hungyu yelled. When Matka attacked him, the last few sword energies flew back in a flash. Swoosh! 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 They all pierced into Matka's back. Almost at the same time, the whole space exploded. Wave I! In the huge storm of attacks, it released an explosion at the same moment when Matka opened its energy shield to launch an attack. Pucci! It spewed out a mouthful of blood and then vanished. At this moment, lightning bolts lit up the world while an extremely huge god made completely of thunderbolts suddenly descended. Became slow. The moment that Matka attacked, he looked horrified since he saw that huge thunder god roaring. Then, thunderbolts filled the sky and devoured him. Ultimate Blade Dance Lightning. Judgment. Almost at the same time, attacks from the 3 adventurers arrived. In the next moment, words appeared on every member's screen, "You cleared Black Volcano. We passed. We really passed." After Matka died, no one could block these adventurers, and the erupting lava was nothing for the people who had experienced countless catastrophes. Everyone gathered at Anton's huge heart, and they stabbed their weapons into it. In the next moment, the huge throbbing heart had countless holes in it. Blood spurted out while golden thunderbolts and restless energy ran havoc in its body. The heart suddenly burst. Looking down from the noble sky, they saw this extremely huge prehistoric beast spitting out a mouthful of burning lava. As if it couldn't withstand the heavy burden anymore, it spasmed and struggled. With a pathetic howl echoing in the area, the huge turtle head finally fell into the ocean while the lava on the volcano slowly cooled down, turning into a huge dead black volcano on the vast ocean. The horrifyingly huge beast that could only be subdued by godly power fell at the hands of a group of powerful adventurers after a fierce battle. Chapter 857. Let's see what these guys are doing. They stared at the screen intently. What will drop in this raid? Let's see what items it dropped. At this moment, a huge translucent virtual control panel appeared on their game interface, showing 4 shiny golden cards. Nalan Mingxiu immediately clicked on one, and the card flipped to the back and showed the words, Abyss Invitation *140. The 4 cards vanished and were replaced by 20 golden cards. She clicked on them one by one. Anton's Soul Fragment? What's this? This is a material used to make new weapons. Nalan Mingxiu opened the store on one side and said. At this moment, in the zone of Ultimate West Realm in the Yuanyang City shop, people like Gabriel, SIA, and Luo Piaoling were also looking at their screens intently. Such a monster must drop at least a godly equipment, right? The golden cards opened slowly. Suddenly, Gabriel found a new item in his backpack. He erupted into a loud exclamation, Savior's Glory Zanbeto. On the sword was engraved with a line of small words. Let all the energy in the world strengthen you. Let your enemies feed you with their life force. You will acquire the true power of an apostle. And when the power has done its work, it will shake heaven and earth. Eulogy to Anton. Skill attack in 35%. After activation, it can release the magic power of the 7th apostle, Fire Eater Anton. In disbelief, he rubbed his eyes. Then, he opened his mouth wide. Ha 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 ha. Ah ha 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 ha. Ugh. What's happening? What's happening? They saw a figure fall from the chair stiffly. At the entrance of the internet cafe, the godly swords hanging on the bamboo stick yelled repeatedly, No! Someone suddenly died. Bedlam broke loose in the internet cafe. Sir! Someone got a Savior's Glory Zanbeto and died of SCD. TL note, SCD sudden cardiac death. The nearby Ultimate West Realm people's faces twitched. How is he? SIA asked Lu Piaoling, who was checking on Gabriel. Blood rushed into his head, perhaps it's a result of his excessive cultivation recently. Luo Piaoling's face darkened while he yelled, It's not SCD. Not SCD. It's nonsense. They heaved out a sigh of relief. If the story went out that a warrior of the Ultimate West Realm died of SCD while playing games, how shameful it would be. Immediately, he kicked Gabriel's butt. Hurry up and get up. On the endless godly mountains beyond the distant void. This was the residence of the top existences in the world, the holiest place. It was a view that the ignorant followers could never imagine even in their dreams. Noble, ancient, elegant, every complimentary word could be used to describe this place. Hurry! Hurry up with your work! Extremely chilly ice and snow and bone-chilling winds swept around the tall mountain peaks. In the distance at the top of the mountain was a grand god statue that wasn't finished yet. Many figures were busy moving huge boulders bigger than millstones toward the godly palace that was still in construction in the chilly winds. Deep footprints were left in the thick snow. Hiss! So cold! I wonder when this will end. In the ice and snow, a figure panted heavily, exhaling thick white vapor, and said in a low voice. He was an unshaved middle-aged man with messy hair. Wearing a shabby thick cotton coat, his physique wasn't strong, looking totally different from those great existences or the grand godly palace in the distance. This is completely different. The man blew white vapor at his hands that were covered in frostbites and said, This is completely different from the things that they promised. Why must we do this here? You know what I'm talking about. Stop talking. Oh, please forgive his ignorance, an old man prayed piously. A tiny gift from them is better than anything that we can imagine in the lower region, a younger man scolded, not to mention the overspilling elemental energy in this place. Although the situation is somewhat different from our expectations, it's good enough. These are solid benefits. Work harder. With a huge boulder several times bigger than his body in his arms, the man looked at the godly palace in the distance and said wishfully, "One day, we'll also have a godly palace of our own." Hee. A series of lazy chuckles came from the distant godly palace. Two gazes were watching the activities in this place. These people are so naive. The speaker was a young man who appeared to be 18 or 19 years old. Watch your language. The man standing next to him looked as dazzling and noble as a golden sun. They were the noblest existences in this world. Everything about them were flawless. With his hands clasped behind his back, he walked toward the depths of the godly palace with a cold expression. Think about their history. Instead of becoming the sacrifice for those evil gods, now, they have the opportunity to serve a grand existence. It's their honor. After turning around, he walked toward another direction along the wide corridor. The heavenly light came in from the window in the ceiling at the right angle, and the courtyard of the gods kept all kinds of rare beasts. Fire phoenixes spread out their plumes while 3 gold lions frolicked on the meadow. 2 figures talked casually while walking. Don't you think they are alike? Hey! Eating the meat that the godly officials toss at them each day, they can't see the world outside and thus won't have any new ideas sprouting in their heads. Isn't it good? But, the people in the lower region are not as obedient as them. They will be. You mean the people in the innumerable immortal sea? Not only them. It's said that those beings' presences seem to appear in the lower region. You should know what it means. By that time, I wonder how these weak bugs will look when they beg for our protection. I think they will really look ugly. How about the innumerable immortal sea? Isn't it more interesting to see the armies of gods and demons both descend to the mortal world? The figure snickered. They are living too peacefully. Without some excruciating pain, those monkeys wouldn't remember their lessons. If they knew that they were in such a dangerous situation, I'm afraid they would be too horrified to sleep at night. The young man chuckled and said, "Let's see what they are doing now." He drew a line with his fingertip, and an extremely strange dark space appeared before him. Then, visuals appeared in it. Let's look at the place near that shop. The scene zoomed in. On the street outside the Yuanyang city shop a huge banner was spread in the mid-air. A group of ultimate West Realm people stood there, and they had dragged Jessica and her companions of the West Continent to join their party. Gabriel stood in the middle of them. Around them, firecrackers and fireworks boomed. Congratulations to young Master Gabriel for acquiring Savior's glory Zanbeto. Ha 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 ha. The 2 men in the godly palace exchanged a look. Chapter 858 The Expedition of the Innumerable Immortal Sea and the Descendants of Demonic Gods. It seems to be a weapon in a game. These people are totally oblivious of the crisis. Instead, they are in the mood to celebrate the acquisition of a weapon in a game. Good. Very good. Wondrous Spell High Holiness had an intense murderous spirit in his eyes. Ever since the prehistoric time, you are the first group of people who dare to disregard our Gui family and the innumerable immortal sea. The innumerable immortal sea was a world of its own, separated from the lower region. The immortals usually traveled to other places through teleportation arrays. If they sent out immortal armies, they would travel to other regions through the remote demon-slaying platform. At this moment, on the demon-slaying platform, 100,000 immortal soldiers were dressed in shiny silver armor and stood tall under flapping flags. Like demonic gods from the prehistoric times, the immortal generals from the Ying, Yun, Gui, and Yao families stood proudly and magnificently in the skies with their dragons and cloud beasts. They were led by 4 people. The first one was a middle-aged man dressed in a blue robe, and his visage looked a little green. Beneath his feet, a pair of black dragons soared in the air, summoning clouds and rain with booming heavenly thunderbolts. The second one was a man in his prime. 6 meters tall, he had a dark face and was dressed in black armor. Holding a huge gold hammer, he shook the heaven and earth with each step he took. The third one was a young deist dressed in a white robe. Standing on the auspicious clouds with a smile on his face, he waved his paper fan and summoned violent gusts, putting more respect and fear into the eyes of the immortal soldiers than the others. The last one was a white-haired old man. When they were all here, Wondrous Spell High Holiness said with a laugh, "It's just a small issue. I'm honored to see 4 famous heavenly generals taking the time and coming here in person. It's not troublesome for us. With High Holiness leading the army in person, there's no reason that we can't obtain victory. We're just here to witness your victory, offering a little help to your great power," the old man said while cupping his hands. The young deist said, "The immortal master of our Yao family heard about the uproar in the mortal world and their audacious public challenge. They were so insolent that they killed our immortal soldiers. If we don't punish them severely, how can our families stand tall in the world of immortals and gods in the future?" Besides, the green-faced middle-aged man said in a cold voice, "I heard that a man even demanded us to change rules and give way to him. I, Yun Hai, have never seen such a brazen person. He deserves to die." "Excellent." Wondrous Spell High Holiness laughed. "We'll show these ignorant people what they get for slighting immortal rules and killing immortal soldiers. Kill! Kill! Kill!" On the demon-slaying platform, the flags covered the sky while murderous spirits shot up into the 9th heaven. Meanwhile, at Origin Internet Club, Mr. Fang was now tidying up his storage space. Before him stood a very strange metal machine with a strange screen. "Which one should I disassemble?" "Unlimited rocket launcher." Mr. Fang glanced at it. "Would it work? Can it produce godly weapon fragments after being disassembled?" This weapon was the earliest reward that the system gave him. In the past, it had indeed been a powerful weapon, but now, its damage was less impressive compared with others. He put the rocket launcher into the machine and saw words appearing on the screen. "After disassembling, you'll get defective godly weapon fragments. 10 defective godly weapon fragments can combine into 1 godly weapon fragment. Do you want to disassemble it?" "Damn it!" Mr. Fang cussed and took the launcher out of the machine. "Forget it. I'll put this damn thing in my collection." Then, he glanced at the second item that he wouldn't use anymore, a rune-word broadsword from Diablo 2. Due to the material limits of the sword and the growth of Mr. Fang's strength, this sword had been rarely used. "You'll get godly weapon fragments and defective godly weapon fragments. Do you want to disassemble it?" "Yes." The machine hummed. Soon, 1 godly weapon fragment and 6 defective godly weapon fragments appeared on the system interface. "Lightwing Sword, an epic weapon from Dungeon Fighter Online, I'll disassemble it." After all, after getting the dual swords, Wangshu and Zai, the other swords were no longer of great use. Now, with his current strength, Fang Qi could use Apophyse even without synchronization. "I don't need this big gun anymore," the blade-style missile launcher, it was the weapon used by Dante and the main female character, Lady, in Devil May Cry 3. Obviously, Fang Qi didn't need it anymore. He got altogether 4 godly weapon fragments through disassembling. After combining the defective godly weapon fragments, he now had 6 of them. Mr. Fang nodded in satisfaction and put away the disassembling machine. At this moment, he suddenly sensed a strange presence. Meanwhile, a prompt appeared on the system interface. "New task, severely punish the troublemakers." Task reminder, a large group of troublemakers will come to the new shop. Host must deal with it solemnly. Task reward, Carrier Rock 1, System Gift Bag 1, double coupon for the Cultivation Room *1, it will increase cultivation speed. A large group of troublemakers will come to my new shop. Mr. Fang was puzzled. What's happening? I didn't mess with the local gangs when I opened the new shop. Who is there to crash my internet cafe? Immediately, he went to the new shop. At this moment, in the old shop in Half City Cultivator Alliance Artifact Research Association, in the center of the association stood a huge and tall tower on the surface, and it was engraved with dense and complicated arrays. Energy waves invisible to the naked eye were released from the tall tower into the endless distance. At this moment, a virtual screen looking like a large-scale communication jade screen inside the tall tower had some strange visuals on it. Hey, what's this? At the bottom of the ocean. Something seems to be moving. Report it. Strange things appeared at the ocean bottom with weird energy waves. Strange energy is growing quickly. Its nature is yin, suspected to be large demonic monsters. Degree of danger is, the golden spoon on the exquisite golden Chinese compass beside the cultivator slowly turned to the very top. Degree of danger is, the cultivator howled in astonishment, God level. Hurry! Report to all major factions. In Yellow Spring Sea, the creatures living here had always been fiercer and more horrifying than those living in the other oceans due to the influence of the presences leaking from ninefold darkness demon realm where the demonic gods and monsters lived. There were countless evil beings hidden in it. But at this moment, all the monsters living in the Yellow Spring Sea seemed to be submissive as if they were worshipping their king. From the depths of the ocean, an extremely huge crack was torn open. Then, a large group of unimaginable horrifying huge beasts came from another world in silence. A chilly voice sounded in the gloomy darkness, when we truly descend in this world and appear before these weak humans, can you guess how horrified they will look? This wasn't something that could be easily solved. This was a catastrophe that no ordinary cultivators could withstand. The presence is still growing. It's getting stronger and stronger. How far is it now? We can't let it get close to the cities. Duan Yu, the chief artifact master of the Cultivator Alliance Artifact Research Association, was the cultivator who had led the project of making a mimic of Heavenly Mirror. He yelled, "No, we can't let it get within 50 kilometers of any city. Inform all the faction masters. Move the Vital Magnetic Wind Thunder battleships." Vital Magnetic Wind Thunder battleships were spiritual ships that were equipped with the spiritual artifacts of war, which were mimics of railguns. In the battle with the Judgment Godly Palace, the mimicked railguns had knocked over their enemies' destructive magic missile cannons. Now, they had improved this weapon and equipped every cultivation faction with them. Half-city Vital Magnetic Wind Thunder battleships are on the move, the factions need some time to move theirs. How long? Duan Yu asked. From several hours to 3 days. Can't they use the teleportation array? Duan Yu paused and killed this stupid idea since the current teleportation array technology couldn't transport things that were as big as the Vital Magnetic Wind Thunder battleships. The presence is still growing and will probably reach Half City and other nearby cities in one day. It's too late. Duan Yu gritted his teeth and said, "Go, ask for reinforcements from other places." At this moment, Ning Bai began her new day in the Half City shop. As the main healer in Team 2 of the first raid group of Anton, she couldn't vacate her post. Besides, she hadn't played her Alt Demon Bane and Archmage accounts yet. Having just finished one account, she put down the virtual reality headset and lounged on the computer chair to rest. Big trouble. At this moment, a woman who managed the business for Ning Bai hurried to her side and whispered, "Mistress, demons have been detected in the Yellow Spring Sea, and the degree of danger is God level. It's very possible that they will threaten Half City." What? Ning Bai's face darkened, knowing that threats on this level were hard to deal with. It would be fine if they were ordinary monsters, but demons from the Yellow Spring Sea. Everyone knew how fierce and powerful they were. I probably can't join the party for the raid for now. At this moment, Ning Bulletin posted the message in the group chat with a grim expression. What happened? I have 3 alt accounts to go. I have 7. Gabriel yelled. They seem to have trouble. Gu Tingyun replied. A god-level demon came close to Half City. What? Everyone was shocked, wondering how such a monster would appear suddenly. How come such a demon appeared? Do you know its background? Not yet, Ning Bai said. At this moment, everyone felt the grim atmosphere. I plan to go and check it out. Gu Tingyun said, what are your plans? It's a big issue, and I can't stay out of it. Nalan Hongyu said, I'll go and see what demon it is. In Half City, high ocean waves surged up and viciously crashed against the tall cliff of Half City. More than 10 spiritual ships slowly flew out like a fleet in the sky. Today, the sky above the surrounding sea area was unusually clear with a few puffy clouds floating in the bright blue sky peacefully. It didn't look like a catastrophe was about to strike. These spiritual ships were very fast. The ocean water gradually turned from dark blue to turbid yellow. While reflecting the sunlight on the surface, the sea looked peaceful except for a few floating seaweeds. But only the half-city cultivators who had lived here for a long time knew that this sea area was a dangerous place that few cultivators were willing to step into. At this moment, they found the sea water seems to be flowing. All the ocean water seemed to dim without a reason. A shadow engulfed the bottom of the sea, and even the shadows the spiritual ships cast on the sea were indistinguishable. It looked as if an extremely huge creature was hovering overhead. But when they looked up, they saw nothing. Although they knew that this shadow came from the bottom of the ocean, the creepy feeling sent chills down their spines. Be careful! There's something at the bottom of the sea. Even Nalan Hongyu looked grim. At this moment, at the bottom of Yellow Spring Sea, a voice seemed to rise from the extremely gloomy darkness. Finally, we're here. Is this the presence of the mortal world? There are humans here. It seemed to sense over 10 spiritual ships coming from all directions. Oh! Let's go up, the voice seemed to come from the depths of ninefold darkness. Immediately, the shadows at the bottom of the ocean grew darker and deeper. At this moment, someone exclaimed as a huge mountain seemed to rise from the turbid yellow water. Then, the huge mountain grew larger and wider until it filled the entire sea area. It looked as if a huge continent was slowly rising from the sea. At the sight of this huge horrifying monster, almost everyone stepped back in horror with their mouths opening wide. Almost no one had ever seen such a huge and horrifying monster. Its head rose from the sea, looking like a huge mountain peak rising into the clouds. Roar! The earth-shaking hoarse roar almost shattered people's eardrums. When its giant black mouth opened, it sucked in all the spiritual essence from this region like a whale sucking in water. Like an extremely huge black hole, it looked as if it would devour everything in the world. Be careful, everyone! Fire! Fire! Alarmed yells and curses rose immediately. Boom! 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 Streaks of spiritual light lit up one by one but afflicted almost no damage to the horrifying monster. At this moment, the extremely huge monster stopped absorbing spiritual essence. Then, a figure flew out from the mouth of the huge turtle. Looking at the overconfident humans and the ships that were as small as the debris on the ground, it laughed as if it was mocking their overconfidence. The attacks on this scale were weaker than tickling to the monster. Is this the god-level monster? Duan Yu's face darkened as he warned other people around him. Be careful! Emitting a presence that was as huge as an ocean, the monster was as big as an enormous island. On its pitch-black back were ugly spikes. This monster wasn't something that humans could block. This is... The group led by Nalan Hongyu exchanged a look and saw the astonishment in each other's eyes. This is... Yes. This is it. Duan Yu and the faction masters looked grimmer. You guys must be careful. This, cackle. I'm the messenger of the ninefold darkness demonic general. It's your honor that we are borrowing the path in the mortal world. Are you ready to sacrifice yourselves to us? Zhang Xiaoyu had just finished playing games and was walking out of the shop with a large group of heavenly faction elders and disciples, happily talking about today's games and TV series with them. She had just pushed open the door when she saw wild gusts sweeping up the sand and dust while a layer of auspicious clouds with soaring purple mist blocked the sky. She looked up and saw dense crowds standing in the clouds with flapping flags around them. They were troops from the innumerable immortal sea. Immortal generals stood among them, and black dragons soared in the sky with dazzling golden lights. These dragons' chilly eyes looked down and sent chills down people's spines. This. Several heavenly faction disciples had never seen such a scene before and retreated in horror. They stumbled and almost fell to the ground. Then, several thunderbolts shot down from the vast purple clouds and struck the crowd. Boom! They came so suddenly that almost no one could react. Instantly, these players screamed in fear and scrambled to flee while some were injured by the thunderbolts. Some purple immortal thunderbolts crashed toward elder senior disciple Yu Yin and the exchange disciples including Yu Bai. How could these disciples dodge such great spells? Even a scratch from the thunderbolts severely wounded some disciples, let alone the people who stood right under the thunderbolts. At this moment, a small figure shot up in a flash. The thunderbolts turned and struck the ground beside them. As if the land cracked and the sky collapsed, the thunderbolts instantly left a deep crater in the ground. Xiaoyu, the players yelled in alarm and saw Zhang Xiaoyu's face turning slightly pale. You have some abilities. A sneer sounded in the sky. I'll see if you can block the next strike. While this person spoke, a purple lightning snake thicker than the previous ones crashed toward Zhang Xiaoyu. Xiaoyu, be careful. Even the elders standing in the distance turned pale in fear. At this moment, the door behind them opened wide as a bright blue light shot out like a beam of ebony ice. The purple thunderbolt was shot down and turned into dazzling purple air currents that swept outward in all directions. The scattered thunderbolts retreated from the bright blue light and didn't hurt anyone. At this moment, a figure came out with a box of fried chicken bites in his hands. Having just finished the last piece of chicken, he threw the empty box into a nearby garbage can and walked out of the shop. Sir! They looked back in pleasant surprise. Sure enough, the figure was Mr. Fang. Mr. Fang yelled at the sky blurrily, who just bullied Xiaoyu. Hee hee. A light chuckle sounded in the sky. Instead of taking the easy way to the heaven, you must break into hell. Cast the Star Silk Heavenly Net. The Star Silk Heavenly Net was an immortal item that the Gui family made by collecting the essence of the fallen stars. Once it was spread, the entire sky looked like a curtain of clouds with starry lights blinking on it. Like a heavenly net, it blocked all exits in the area. Today, no one could escape from it. Then, a young general walked out from the crowd in the purple cloud, and he shouted, I'm Gui Yuan from the Gui family. Today, you can't run from us even if you have wings. How dare you block the attacks for others? So, it's you guys? Was it you who shot those purple thunderbolts? Mr. Fang's face darkened. As a shop owner, he only needed to oversee the staff and keep an eye on his shops, but he couldn't remain calm when people made trouble before his shop and even wanted to hurt his customers. It was me, what can you do? Gui Yuan said coldly. The moment he said it, a streak of burning firelight shot out like a long rainbow. With a scream, Gui Yuan looked down and saw that his left arm had been cut off by the sword blade. Instantly, cold sweat popped out on his body from the pain. You! Intense murderous spirit flashed in his eyes. He was about to leap down to battle when wondrous spell High Holiness stopped him. Back off! Haven't you disgraced yourself enough? With his sharp eyes, he had naturally seen that even though the young man who was using the flying swords had lower cultivation strength than Gui Yuan, his sword techniques were extremely powerful and could easily defeat Gui Yuan. At this moment, they saw two flying swords, one blue and one red, dashing back into their scabbards. They are Zai and Wangshu. Behind Mr. Fang, Zhang Xiaoyu stared at the two swords with sparkling eyes. While looking at Mr. Fang eagerly, she asked, Boss, where did you get Zai and Wangshu? Thank you for the rescue, sir. At this moment, some disciples walked up to express their gratitude. Then, they asked curiously, Zai and Wangshu? Do these two swords have special backgrounds? Obviously, not everyone had played the Legend of Sword and Fairy 4. These are two godly swords. In the legends, Zai is said to be the mother of the sun, who is the goddess controlling the sun. Wangshu is the god controlling the moon. They are both extremely powerful. Zhang Xiaoyu said, Hehe, I heard it from Sister Qingqing and others when they studied the plot. Named after the gods, the two godly swords are the most powerful godly weapons of the Qianhua faction. Legend? Is it a legend just like that of the great sage, Heaven's Equal? Hearing Xiaoyu mentioning legends, the other players looked interested. Right. Right. They seem to be in the same long timeline. The legends are very grand, some of the characters are even more ancient than the great sage, Heaven's Equal. Hearing their talk, Gui Yuan couldn't help sneering. What legend? How come we've never heard of it before? In my opinion, it's just a joke that you ignorant mortals made up. You know damn nothing. Zhuge King Yun, Heavenly Faction's Grand Elder, yelled furiously with a walking cane in his hand, these legends exist in the ancient nation named Huaxia. They are absolutely real. Do you think we are learning fake stuff? You're ignorant and stubborn, and you even dared to hurt immortals of our Gui family. Call out the reckless immortals who have your back. At a wave of the command flag, the battle drums shook the heavens while countless troops swarmed up like the yellow spring. At this moment, the mortals beneath their feet truly felt the force that was totally beyond their realm. Their faces looked extremely grim. Are you afraid? Chilly gazes looked down from the purple clouds. I'll see if the so-called legends from your damn ancient nation can protect you. Chapter 861 Real Masters. At this moment, all the demon soldiers and generals knelt on one knee with great respect on their faces. Before them sat a brawny man dressed in pitch-black armor. The man looked totally different from humans. With twisted horns on his forehead, his face was engulfed in gloomy and fierce presence. His skin emitted a metal glare, and his armor seemed to be part of his body. Compared to humans, he looked more like an evil demon. This being rested one arm on the armrest of the throne that was made of bones. Before him was a clear projected screen that showed the scenes outside. Countless demon soldiers soared up into the sky like black feathers. At this moment, black smoke covered the rivers, mountains, and land. The humans who were like ants and bugs didn't scramble to run. Instead, they dared to launch attacks. My lord, the demon generals sensed the presence, and they felt uneasy, afraid that this being would destroy the heaven and earth in a burst of fury. The demonic god sitting high on the throne of bones had cold glints in his eyes. It's okay. They never thought that the bug-like mortals could be their enemies, but it wasn't a bad thing to let the demon soldiers and generals get some warm-up exercises before the real battle. Instantly, turbid waves surged and shot up into the high sky above the yellow spring sea. A streak of pitch-black evil presence spread out in all directions and gradually engulfed the whole sea area. The gloomy winds made those places look like the chilly ninefold darkness realm. The huge heaven-devouring turtle in the distance was also engulfed in the vast evil presence. When the gloomy winds blew at the evil presence, people could see the demon army with chilly auras standing on the mountain-like head and continent-like back of the heaven-devouring turtle in neat formations. More frightening was that even mere demon soldiers emitted scary energies, let alone the horrifying monster which looked like a demonic god. Perhaps this was the legendary demonic god who could devour the heaven and earth. Boom! A huge noise sounded. The huge heaven-devouring turtle waved its giant palm, looking as if a heavenly pillar crashed down, surging up a heavenly curtain made of seawater. Two spiritual ships that were not quick enough to dodge were viciously crushed by the currents. Like a piece of paper, the pale spiritual light shield was shattered. Then, the spiritual ships instantly collapsed under this strike. While screaming, Countless cultivators were swept into the ocean waves and got devoured by the turbid sea. At this moment, all the cultivators paused their attacks and felt chills running down their spines. At this moment, they remembered that it was the first time that they faced such enemies. Games? They had killed god-level enemies in the games, but they would never really die in the games. They could detect their enemies' weaknesses through deaths and find a solution in the end. But in the real world, they knew almost nothing about their enemies. There was a big difference and barrier between the real world and the virtual world. Reality was always harsher than the ideal world. Right now, they were facing existences truly beyond mortals. Before such demons, humans were like ants that were floating on an ocean. Feeling the vast ocean-like power, these people didn't doubt that a casual strike from their enemies would turn all of them into dust. Besides, when they were in the game, they could easily use certain skills since they had the talent of the main characters. But in the real world, they probably couldn't use these skills. Their cultivation strength wasn't even as powerful as 1/10,000th of the main character's strength. This was the difference between the real world and the virtual world. It would be fine if these enemy troops were like the troops of the Judgment Godly Palace, which concentrated only on cultivation strength instead of skills. However, the enemies had obtained great combat force on the bloody battleground while fighting with gods. They went through blood oceans and corpse mountains. In a few moments, the black currents made of demon soldiers swarmed toward the spiritual ships like a black tsunami, bringing intense murderous spirit with them. Instantly, they engaged in combat with the cultivators and warriors on the battleships, forcing the latter to retreat continuously. Pu. The Nanhua faction master was casting spells when he was struck by a demon hiding in the demonic presence. Then, a demon that was 10 meters tall lunged at him with a roar. A sword beam flashed, and Nalan Hungui ran to his rescue. "Leave me, go and rescue the others." The Nanhua faction master pushed Nalan Hungui away and then killed his way into the crowd of monsters. Seeing the fierce battle, Nalan Hungui felt as if he was teleported to the battlefield hundreds of years ago before Dajin was established. In that battle, he was ambushed by enemies, and the entire battlefield was dark with fierce killing. He didn't know when the battle would end. Coming with lofty ideas but being beaten into a bloody pulp by the cruel reality. This was how he felt right now. The old man who was a veteran of wars again felt the heaviness of wars many years later. Cackle. Humans are still so useless, the demonic god sitting on the throne of bones sneered. In his hand was a black three-legged cauldron full of crimson liquid, and the pungent smell filled the air. It seemed to be a special beverage made with the blood of a certain demon beast and some unknown processes. He gulped it down, and a shocking blood trace was left on his chin. "Go and tell them to bring out all the masters that they have." The demonic god said indifferently, "We can treat them as an appetizer before the war." "Yes. Didn't you do the raid? Can't you handle it as you did with Anton?" While he was thinking, Nalan Hungui heard a roar. "But we don't have any intelligence on these demons." Nalan Hungui wished that he could handle this giant turtle as Anton. They looked similar, but wars were not games. These players could learn the skills and combat techniques from the games, but how could they copy the tactics from the games? They were not stupid and knew that they would fail miserably if they copied the strategies in the games to deal with the demons in the real world. Besides, even though this demon looked like Anton, they were not of the same species. It wasn't something that these players could play with. One mistake would plunge all of them into a catastrophic situation. They could kill Anton since they had sent teams to cut off its energy supply and suppress its power as much as they could. Otherwise, the result would be different. But now, how could they suppress this horrifying demon? "Shop owner, where is he?" Nalan Mingxiu browsed her communication jade while a layer of sweat appeared on her forehead. Even Zhongwu and others were trying to contact Fang Qi. It must be noted that even in the battle with the Judgment Godly Palace, the shop owner had watched them from behind, which was why they didn't have to think about failure as the shop owner had their backs. At this moment, Zhongwu received a message. I I can't be there in a short while. No matter what, you must try it once by yourselves. Mr. Fang sounded tired. What if something unexpected happens? Zhongwu asked in alarm. Then, change your plan accordingly. Mr. Fang looked up. The auspicious clouds blocking the sun released an even more horrifying presence. Obviously, Mr. Fang would have a tough battle before the new shop on the East Continent. Remember, you guys are also true masters. Fang Qi recorded this sentence on his communication jade and clicked send. Zhongwu suddenly froze as he held onto his communication jade. We are also masters. Old Ghost Zone, what did Kid Fang say? At this moment, Nalan Hongguo grabbed Zhongwu's communication jade from his hand. He said, we are also masters, Zhongwu said, real masters. Before they knew it, they were no longer the noobs who complained whenever they encountered a difficult stage and must beg Mr. Fang to show them the walkthrough. Without hints and help from anyone else, they had cleared the Anton raid, which was extremely difficult to pass, and killed the horrifying apostle, which was even more powerful than gods. Now, they were also masters. Do we define masters as people who fight battles according to the directions from guides? Everyone. Everyone. Just now, the Cultivation Alliance got some intelligence at the risk of their lives after hearing that you are members of the party who completed the Anton raid and are familiar with the battle method of dealing with this kind of huge beast. At this moment, Mo Xian, Lu Ningyun, and other Nanhua faction elites fought their way through demon crowds with several jade slips in their hands. Are we really going to do it? Zhongwu looked grim. It was a raid that they must win in one try. Otherwise, not only themselves, but all other people would die. All the raid teams. All the raid teams. Gather. The people from the Cultivator Alliance and different factions also worked together. Support. Give them support as much as we can. The raid begins. Inside the huge heaven-devouring turtle, the demon soldiers and generals were all watching the situation outside. At great risks, the human spiritual ships spread out in one neat line before the heaven-devouring turtle. Then, about 20 people broke through the demon soldiers' front line and landed on the huge head of the heaven-devouring turtle. In the surging murderous spirit and demonic smoke, several teams stood in a strange formation. One had holy light rising before him, one had dazzling thunderbolts around him, one controlled pure sword beams, and one looked as bloodthirsty as a demon. At one quick glance, they looked like godly statues from the ancient time who stood in surging murderous spirit. For a moment, these demons felt like they saw the illusion that true gods had been born on this battleground. Chapter 862 The unparalleled battle shocked gods and demons. They were from the giant demon god clan, and they would obtain the power of an average godly figure the moment that they reached adulthood. The vanguard demon general standing in the front had a pair of huge halberds in its hands. It lifted its head and let out a furious roar, changing the colors of the wind and clouds instantly. What are they doing? In the command center inside the huge heaven-devouring turtle, they turned their gazes to this place. There are only a little over a dozen people. What are they planning to do? The demonic god sitting on the throne of bones gazed at the people venturing into their headquarters for no reason, and his face turned cold. Immediately, he issued a command. Receiving a signal from his gaze, one of the giant demons led demon soldiers to swarm toward the human teams tentatively. They were in the direction of Team 2 led by Zhongwu. Zhongwu stood in the front while Zhang Hao, the Vice Academy Master of the Heavenly Academy, stood beside him. Almost at the same time when the giant demon rushed up, it seemed like a prehistoric godly statue that had been sealed in dust for countless years had suddenly woke up. With a peaceful look on his face and a heart as bright as a mirror, a dazzling thunderbolt shot out from Zhongwu's sword with strands of lightning snakes flowing around it. Illuminated by the thunderbolt, the entire blade was turned into the color of white jade. A streak of bone-chilling murderous spirit spread out invisibly. While his wide white robe billowed up with the dust on the battleground, Zhang Hao spread out his arms slightly, and a huge and invisible airfield circulated around his body. Essence changed into golden light beams and flowed around him, slowly lifting him up into mid-air. When a streak of aurora tore open the gloomy darkness and lit up in his eyes, the seemingly endless essence surrounding him instantly devoured all the essence in the natural world. Even all the demons around him lost control of their bodies and were drawn toward him. Meanwhile, Zhongwu's left foot stomped on the ground. In the next moment, thunderbolts spread over the ground and transformed into a miraculous lightning array. Like a huge meat grinder, it pulled all the demon soldiers and generals who swarmed over into it. Finally, two huge and evil-looking sword energies slashed at the giant demonic god and sent it flying out and landing at the feet of Nalan Hongyu and the others. Like a fuse that was ignited, Nalan Hongyu's essence instantly rose to the peak. Another giant demonic god rushed over. At this moment, Nalan Hongyu unsheathed his sword, and all the monsters around him and even the time and space froze. Only countless godly swords hovered in the air. Like a god of the sword, Nalan Hongyu was the lord in this area. With a light slash, a sword pierced a demon soldier's chest. Then, the second slash, the third, the fourth, the slashes grew faster and swifter until the sky was filled with sword shadows. When the sword energies stopped after a long while, the two giant demonic gods had countless cuts in their armor and bodies. Almost no part of them was intact. Then, they flew backward listlessly and fell in the dust. Seeing this scene, an indescribable chill spread all over the battleground. When the team of less than 20 people advanced a step forward, the previously arrogant and horrifying demonic gods took a step back involuntarily. With disbelief in their eyes, they looked at the humans before them and shouted, "What's with these humans? Get out!" At this moment, the dragon-headed vanguard demon general who was holding a pair of huge halberds roared. Then, the tumor-like bumps on his shoulders squirmed and transformed into 5 dragon heads. The 6 heads separated and turned into 6 huge demon dragons. Instantly, the whole world was filled with gusts and lightning bolts. The heavens and earth changed colors as the black dragons soared in the sky. The black demon dragons seemed to draw pitch-black cracks in the sky, moving so fast that it was almost impossible to see their movements. Suddenly, black lights flashed. Like they were teleportating, the 6 huge dragon heads attacked from 6 different directions. While opening their huge mouths which looked as deep as black holes, they appeared as if they could devour everything in the world. Countless destructive black thunderbolts fell in the crowds, and the demon soldiers who accidentally touched them were instantly turned into dust. It was obvious what would happen if humans were struck by them. It has been years, and I'm surprised that these mortals have obtained some good abilities. Inside the huge heaven-devouring turtle, one demon general said, "The 9-fold darkness demon dragons are not only equipped with endless spiritual power and great strength, they also were born with the ability to control winds and thunderbolts. They can fly over thousands of kilometers in one instant. I'll see how these humans block them." Deputy Commander Lu is right, another demon general said, "When the 6 dragons fly at the same time, one vital spirit must control 6 bodies simultaneously. The vanguard general under Deputy Commander Lu is quite good." Of course, it was not difficult for one being to control 6 puppets at the same time, but it was totally different for one person to drive 6 fighter jets at the same time. One splits into 6. At the same time, the people watching the scene from the head of the huge heaven-devouring turtle felt fearful. The 6 demon dragons launched 6 different spells with different attack methods. At this moment, a bolt of sword energy looking like a streak of aurora lit up. The pure sword energy spread out, and countless godly swords flew out from behind Nalan Hongyu as if they had minds of their own. "That's hypervigilance!" Everyone yelled in astonishment. "You want to outplay me? In your dreams!" Instantly, the 5 godly swords spread out behind Nalan Hongyu like wings and transformed into countless godly swords. More than 10,000 sword energies flew up together. Before the 6 demon dragons could finish using their spells and attacks, they were surrounded by the sword energies. Instantly, the 6 demon dragons were forced to stop. Outside the demon dragons was a circle of godly swords emitting 7 colored lights. The space inside the circle of the sword energies seemed to be totally still, looking as if it had been separated from the surrounding space. It was like a godly realm. Got you. The moment that the 6 demon dragons appeared, they were completely trapped by the unbelievable godly sword energies. The demonic thunderbolts scattered and didn't afflict any damage to the people around them. In a flash, the attack was launched so accurately that it didn't allow any demon dragons to escape. This play is so awesome. The people around them stared at the scene with widened eyes. Awesome! I can only control the evil dragons for 3 seconds. It's enough. DPS. Full DPS. This. At this moment, even the demon generals who were watching the battle inside the giant heaven-devouring turtle couldn't sit still. They watched the scene dumbfoundedly. Born with godly strength and control over thunderbolts and winds, the Grand General of the Demon Dragon clan was instantly trapped by the sword energies and couldn't even fight back. This is a god and demon level combat technique. It's an advanced combat technique only an existence of our rank can use. A deputy commander yelled in surprise, how can the weak humans use it? Only gods and demons who were born between the heaven and earth with extremely powerful strength and knowledge about the ultimate laws of nature could master such powerful skills. How could these humans achieve these skills? Chapter 863 That's the Great Sage, Heaven's Equal. In the dark chilly scene, these people managed to kill their way out. Such a scene instantly ignited the bravery in all the other cultivators. Instantly, they were united for one purpose. A streak of clear light from the heavenly mirror rose and shone on the battleground as Lan Mo, the Wu Videist Alliance Master, and some elders circulated their vital essence and controlled this treasure mirror. The demon vanguard is dead. Follow my heavenly mirror and find the source of the murderous aura. Lan Mo said loudly. The murderous aura filling the air had a very bad impact on most of the cultivators. If they could take the opportunity to get rid of it, the situation would change for the better for the cultivators. Team 5, stay here. Zhongwu looked down and saw the horrifyingly huge turtle forcing almost all the cultivators to retreat with its attacks. He yelled, the other 4 teams, follow me to cut off the turtle's legs. Soon, the teams leaped down from the turtle head. Meanwhile, the vital magnetic wind thunder battleships turned the cannons accordingly. What are they going to do? The demonic god sitting on the throne of bones looked thoughtful. Luu. Here. The demon general stood up slowly and bowed respectfully. These mortals have some abilities, the demonic god said coldly, you go and ask them if they want to join my army. Weak mortals always crave for the great power and immortality that I can give. Yes. The mortals will be honored to have garnered appreciation from you, ninefold darkness demon general. The demon general who responded had a bird head and was engulfed in blazing flames. Anyone getting close to him would feel the hell-like burning heat. But, what if they don't want to submit? After killing so many demon soldiers in my army, do they want to leave intact? God is a character of combined ideograms, and its meaning derives both from Shi and Shen. Shi means the inspiration of wisdom while Shen refers to the shape of a lightning bolt, meaning speed and quality like lightning flashes. It also means morality and quality. In the ancient legends, the word God didn't mean specifically the existence beyond mortals. In fact, ancient legends started from the 3 emperors. In the new shop at the East Continent at this moment, all the players gathered outside of the shop. Some were cultivators who had come to help from other shops. At this moment, the cultivators of the half-city shop were not the only ones in a crisis. When the immortals of Gui family descended in Zhuhua City, most of the players didn't witness the horrifying power far beyond mortals. But now, they truly experienced a power that no mortal strength could reach. These players had thought that a true immortal like Guiya was unimaginably powerful. But now, they found that they had been sadly mistaken. In the aura that was as vast and deep as an ocean, except for those immortal soldiers, every immortal here was much more powerful than Gui Yat, the immortal from Connate Cliff. Seeing such a presence, these people had the feeling that even if Qi Tiandi was here in person, he wouldn't be able to kill so many immortals. The immortals looked down coldly from the heaven. "I'll give you one last chance." On the clouds, wondrous spell High Holiness said coldly, "Some of you don't have to die. You must make the choice to give up these unorthodox practices or die." "Why?" Xiao Ao ancestral master stood out and said, "What we learn is the orthodox great Dao, what we know are elegant and ceremonious greetings, what we find are all ultimate truths in the heaven and earth. Why can't we study these things? How can you call them unorthodox practices? Don't you think that it's too late to talk about it?" Wondrous spell High Holiness yelled fiercely, "You dared to kill immortal soldiers from our innumerable immortal sea and injure the vital spirit of an immortal of our Gui family. If we aren't allowed to do that, do you expect us to wait and be killed? Good. 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 You mortals are so stubborn that you want to fight the heavens." Wondrous spell High Holiness furious yell came from the sky. He lifted his hand high and then waved indifferently. "Then, you will turn into dust with this place." Instantly, tens of thousands of immortal soldiers and generals, countless immortal weapons, and the horrifying presence that went beyond mortals' imagination swarmed up like waves. In the next moment, they would devour these confused mortals and the human world. These mortals didn't know what they did wrong. Perhaps being weak was the biggest mistake that they had made in this world. The faction master and elders of the heavenly faction looked into the distance outside the cave abode. Those ordinary mortals without cultivation strength relied on the cultivators to cast immortal spells and superpowers, giving them a guiding light in this catastrophe. But how about us? When they rescued those mortals, they also wished that someone or some existence would show them the way forward in such a situation. After pursuing Dao for dozens of years and dreaming about Dao for thousands of years, they would die without regrets if they could really hear and see the real Dao. Kill! With a fierce roar, someone charged first. He was followed by the second and the third. These cultivators brandished spiritual artifacts and flying swords and charged at the immortals in the sky with crimson eyes. But in the next moment, they dropped to the dust one by one. Regardless of how they struggled, they couldn't get up. Despite their improvements in ability to handle some immortal soldiers, they could never fight the elders and holinesses from the saint families. At this moment, the people suddenly saw a figure shooting up into the sky. That is. As if they saw a heavenly light falling from the place beyond the ninth heaven and shining on the heavy clouds, the grand existences also turned their gazes toward the figure flying up into the high sky. The defiant figure dressed in gold armor and wearing a golden hat looked to be engulfed in blazing flames from Lao Zi's brazier, and the flames also flattered his scarlet cape. As if they couldn't believe what they were seeing, everyone rubbed their eyes subconsciously. They didn't see it wrong. The figure wasn't as grand as the immortals standing in the sky, he even looked a bit tiny. However, he stood before the hundreds of thousands of immortal soldiers and immortals like an insurmountable natural barrier. A monkey! The immortal soldiers sneered when they saw the being before them. However, the people on the ground. The great sage, heaven's equal, Sun Wukong. His body is as hard as ebony iron, his eyes are fiery and golden, his way of immortality. And, the 72 transformations. That's, the great sage, heaven's equal. At this moment, not able to control their feelings, everyone yelled, "That's, the great sage." Chapter 864 When the great sage comes, all immortals dim. I'm Yao Tong, the Earth spiritual general of the Yao family. Today, I'll show you, a hairy monkey, the power of my heaven-shaking hammer. In the 8 ancient immortal families from the prehistoric times, there were altogether 72 Earth spiritual generals, each of which had extremely high cultivation strength and great military merits, not to mention. Is that Yao Tong, one of the top 10 Earth spiritual generals. Exclamations rose from the formations of the families. He's among the most powerful ones within the ranks of the 72 Earth spiritual generals. The immortals from different families talked among themselves animatedly. The 72 Earth spiritual generals obtained their rankings according to the military merits that they accumulated. This Yao Tong is indeed powerful. It was said that he once tore several demon dragon to pieces with his bare hands on the previous life battleground. Let's see how he captures this demon monkey. Seeing the golden melon-shaped huge hammer shooting toward the demon monkey, the immortal soldiers from all families looked pleased. But in the next moment, look at the great sage, heaven's equal. Tsunami-like exclamations erupted from the ground. Looking up, the mortals saw the great sage remain motionless and even use his head to block the huge hammer. Crack! It seemed like the entire world shook 3 times. The immortals from the different families who had been talking animatedly were horrified. They saw that the golden melon-shaped huge hammer cracked in the middle and broke into 2 pieces. With his spiritual treasure destroyed, Earth spiritual general Yao Tong shivered violently, and his face instantly turned pale. This. The golden melon huge hammer was forged with a special gold from outer space. One spiritual general roared, "It's impossible. How can it be?" Quiet! Wondrous spell High Holiness snorted and gave that spiritual general a hard look. In this expedition, he was the leader of the alliance forces of all the immortal families and had a much higher rank than these minor generals. Don't disgrace us by yelling in front of the enemy. The demon monkey has nothing but a hard body. Wondrous spell Almighty said, he will dissolve when we temper it with water and fire. You're wise, High Holiness. Spiritual General Yuan. Wondrous spell High Holiness turned his head and said to the green-faced immortal general who was dressed in a green robe and stepping on a pair of black dragons, the demon monkey has some abilities. It seems like we must summon the spirit-melting godly flame of the Yuan family. Spirit-melting godly flame. The immortals behind them became animated again. It's said that this flame was made by the ancestor of the Yuan family by collecting the rare items in the depths of outer space and the essence from heaven and earth. It's a miraculous creation and can melt anything. Even the immortal masters don't dare to touch it. It's said that even one thread of this flame can burn a large group of heavenly immortals to death. Let's see how the demon monkey dies this time. What's this demon monkey doing? These immortals were more confident when they saw the look on the monkey, as if he was saying, "Do whatever you can, I'll admit defeat if you can damage one hair on me. This monkey will surely die." While they talked, the immortal general with the surname of Yuan took out an immortal token made of ancient jade, and he chanted while holding a daoist gesture. A little while later, the sky dimmed as if the whole world was plunged into a vast catastrophe. In the dark sky, a streak of golden light appeared. Then, a strange blue flame lit up in the space, flashing with waves of cold blue light. It seemed to have no heat inside. But everyone could feel that a frightening high heat was hidden in the gloomy blue flame. The immortals didn't even dare to take one step closer to it, afraid that the wind would blow the light-looking flame toward them. At this moment, the monkey didn't dodge. Instead, he remained where he was without moving a muscle. In the next moment, a surging fire instantly devoured the monkey. Ha 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 ha! This demon monkey is destroyed. In the sky, the immortals scorned while they looked at the mortals standing in front of the Origins Internet Club. We'll see what else you can do. F***ck off. Banana boat. Instantly, a disciple of the heavenly faction cussed. TL note, this curse came from a famous League streamer in China named PDD. Open your eyes and have a good look. Good cussing. Where did you learn it, senior brother? Seeing some spiritual generals shrinking their necks involuntarily upon hearing the cusses, one disciple asked curiously. I picked it up from watching a League of Legends live stream. Zhuge Qinlong, the elder senior disciple of the heavenly faction, smirked smugly. At this moment, the immortal generals looked carefully with wide eyes. Sure enough, they saw the monkey rolling and frolicking in the strange blue flame as if he was taking a bath with great enjoyment. Too cool. Not hot enough. Make it hotter. What? All the immortal soldiers were stupefied. Even burning in the spirit-melting godly flame, he doesn't look uncomfortable at all. Instead, he is asking for more heat. These immortal soldiers and generals had never seen such a scene before. Even spiritual General Yuan, who cast the spell, looked dumbfounded and yelled, "This is not real. The monkey must be using a spell to trick our eyes." The moment he said that, he saw the monkey shooting into the crowd of immortal soldiers. Instantly, the immortal soldiers screamed pathetically, ran around, and caused chaos in the formations. More astonishing was that Yao Tong, the Earth spiritual general, was caught off guard. A tiny flame jumped onto his body. Instantly, the flame turned into a blazing fire and melted his armor and tempered his body, causing a series of pathetic howls. If the flame continued to burn, this powerful spiritual general who ranked in the top among the spiritual generals would be turned into ashes. Quickly summon back the spiritual flame. Wondrous spell. High Holiness stared at spiritual General Yuan, who stood in a daze, and reprimanded him loudly. "Oh!" Spiritual General Yao snapped back to his senses. Then, after biting open the tip of his tongue, he spat essence blood onto the ancient jade token. "Godly fire, please return." After spitting essence blood 3 times and issuing orders repeatedly, he finally withdrew the godly fire. By now, he was disheveled and covered in sweat, losing all the magnificence of an ancient immortal family. At this moment, a flag silently rose from the crowd in front of the shop. On the red flag were written 5 big black characters, "The Great Sage, Heaven's Equal." The flag flapped in the wind, adding more magnificence to the Monkey King, who stood proudly in the sky dressed in a golden set of armor and a golden helmet, looking down at everything in the world. At this moment, the immortals who had filled the entire sky changed color. Even wondrous spell High Holiness looked grim right now. High Holiness, there were many immortal generals in the ancient families, and the most powerful 4 were called the 4 directional spiritual generals, who were very famous among the immortal families. At this moment, their faces looked chilly. How about, wondrous spell? High Holiness's old face had never looked so cold before, and a gloomy glint flashed across his eyes. "You and I deal with the demon monkey together, and we will see how powerful he is. The others take the opportunity to capture the mortals. With these hostages, we can force him to surrender." After walking out of the palace, she saw a long pavilion winding through the rich spiritual essence and blooming flowers, among which colorful butterflies danced. It seemed like this was a paradise in the mortal world. "Master! Master!" Her 2 disciples flew over cheerfully like butterflies. "How come you're late today? What have you been cultivating lately?" "Nothing special," Su Tianji shook her head and said, "Lately, I've been understanding the Dao lecture given by the immortal living in the cave of Slanting Moon and 3 stars in the mountain of mind and heart. Whenever I found enjoyment from it, I'd forget the passage of time. That immortal's lecture is very profound and mysterious. I think it's super difficult." Disciple Yuexin frowned slightly and mumbled, "Master, don't you find it too profound and mysterious?" "No," Su Tianji said. "Hey!" The 2 disciples exchanged a look. "Does our master have extraordinary talents? Is she far more talented than average people? Are you more powerful than Senior Nalan and know how to do the cloud somersault?" Disciple Fenghua looked at their master in pleasant surprise and asked. "They all say our master is getting idle and becoming more noob, but it seems that those rumors are just slander. Look, she can even understand the mysterious Dao lecture given by that powerful immortal living in the cave of Slanting Moon and 3 stars. No 72 transformations?" Yuexin asked immediately. "No, have you obtained the way of immortality?" "No." There are so many spells taught in the cave of Slanting Moon and 3 stars. Why should we learn those? Look, the Palm Thunder is relatively simple." Before her 2 disciples, Su Tianji condensed thunderbolts in her palm and then pushed it out before withdrawing it with proficiency. She stood straighter with great confidence. It's super easy. Standing alone in the world and waiting to ascend to become an immortal. This sentence could be used to describe Duguyi and the other ancestral who had been away from the world for a long time. They were lonely and desolate. Different from Xiaoao ancestral master, they lost all of their previous forces, let alone their descendants. Most people gave them respect, but they also kept a distance from them in fear. The three of them usually gathered at Cloud Ethereal Peak to talk about Dao, so they were also called the Three Friends of Cloud Peak. Li Wuchen, Duguyi, Shang Zhuwen. The glories that these names represented had been buried in the passage of time. Regardless if they had been good or evil, no one in this world cared to find out. After all, even their enemies and their enemies' forces and descendants had all been devoured by the long river of time. Their era had long passed. The current era didn't need them. Luckily, in the place called the Internet, no one would care if they were ancestral masters or not. With the goal of becoming godlike figures, they had something to occupy their time. I realize, the immortal-like Daoist dressed in a white Daoist robe and holding a whisk said, the things that we spent all our lives pursuing, don't seem important anymore. Perhaps we are getting old, and thus no longer care about certain things. When you are old, you pretend to be profound and mysterious. Beside him, Shang Zhuwen said with a snicker, if you don't care about things, then don't fight for mid-lane with me. Hey! Duguyi said, let's continue the talk about Dao. Let's continue. Watching the battle with Qi Tiandi at the firm stealth godly palace, and listening to the lecture on Dao given by the old immortal Subadai at the mountain of mind and heart, I gained more benefits than cultivating for hundreds of years. When we talk with others in the future, we can boast and say that we watched a battle of gods and listening to a lecture on Dao given by an immortal, right? It's a pity that everyone in the world has watched it and listened to it. They are not things belonging to us alone. Master! Fang Qi yelled, it seems like, something big is happening. Should we go and help them? In the new shop at the East Continent several Earth spiritual generals came down and led the remaining immortal soldiers and generals. Some had huge heaven-hacking axes, and some held the power of wind, thunder, and other heavenly powers. Hundreds of thousands of immortal soldiers covered the whole world. Even the prehistoric true demons would be scared by such a great army, let alone a group of weak mortals. How could mortals have the strength to fight the heaven? Mere mortals, surrender to us. Why are you still struggling? The huge axe hacked down with sky-shattering force. As soon as these mortals dodged it, a godly light shot down like a long rainbow. Then, with a boom, a tribulation lightning bolt that could kill real immortals crashed down. The two sides of the battle were not on the same level. Heavenly faction master Fang Qi was surrounded by several immortal elites, not to mention others. In the blink of an eye, their faces turned pale, and their steps stumbled. Soon, the cultivators and warriors were forced to retreat continuously in defeat. If the immortals didn't want to capture them alive, most of them would have died already. Die or surrender. As the immortal lights of the spiritual treasures devoured them like ocean waves, one immortal general yelled furiously. But at this moment, don't be scared. Heavenly faction master Fang Qi yelled, the great sage, heaven's equal is battling alongside us shoulder to shoulder. If the immortals and gods are kind, we respect them. If they are cruel, we must fight them. With a mystical iron sword in his hand and covered in blood, the black-robed elder Dugu Xiao glared at the enemies who were tightly surrounding him. Even if we die, we have 100,000 heroic souls with us. Heya! His roar resonated all over the region as he fought his way into the enemies without a care for his life. Our heroic souls will live forever. Covered in blood, the members of the heavenly faction charged toward their enemies. Master! Wars were cruel. In the blood-covered battleground, a yell of alarm rose. The whole battleground was in chaos. Su Tianji looked back and saw that Fenghua and Yuexin's spiritual shields had broken, and Fenghua even had a bone-deep wound in her belly. Then, a horrifying immortal thunderbolt crashed down from the sky. She looked up and saw an immortal general looking down from the sky as if he was looking at the ants on the ground. The light from the thunderbolts turned the two girls' faces white. Nothing in the world was constant, heavenly Dao is merciless. This morning, they had frolicked happily and talked about the recent TV series and game guides. But perhaps they would never return to the place full of blooming flowers and starry lights. They smiled bitterly. No one expected this to be their last moment in the world. At this moment, Su Tianji's mind turned blank. She wondered what spells in her knowledge was powerful enough to block these unimaginably powerful immortals. She couldn't think of one and didn't have time to ponder. Almost subconsciously, she condensed spiritual energy and summoned a thunderbolt in her palm. The palm thunder created a small ball of thunder, and it looked pale and weak. Glancing at the immortal thunderbolt that was as thick as a bucket, the immortal in the sky had a contemptuous and mocking look in his face. This was destiny. However, no one knew that the statement which Tuguyi and the other two ancestral mentioned on the Cloud Peak mountain, "We watched a battle of gods and listened to a lecture on Dao given by an immortal," wasn't accurate. It should have been, "We watched a battle of the gods of war and listened to the lecture on Dao given in a sage's faction." Yes, a sage's faction. This was Palm Thunder, the most orthodox, the most basic, and the most mysterious immortal spell used by average immortals, Tongtian and Patriarch Hengjun in most of the Oriental legends before Fang Qi traveled through space. TL note, both Tongtian and Patriarch Hengjun are mythological figures in ancient China. At this moment, the Palm Thunder collided with the spiritual thunderbolt that the immortal cast. After the thunder, it seemed like the heaven and earth had turned silent. Then, to everyone's horror, they saw the immortal thunderbolt with unrivaled force beginning to shatter and collapse. "She's using." The mortals were inspired. Woo! At the same time, a flute sound exploded in the mind of the immortal soldiers like a sharp whistle piercing the sky. With a jade flute in his hand, a black-robed scholar sent demonic notes into the minds of the enemies again and again. A grey-robed swordsman flew over while standing on a sword which was as bright as lightning. "The three ancestral master are here as well. High Holiness! I'm afraid that the immortal soldiers might not be able to capture these mortals in a short while." At this moment, most of the 72 Earth spiritual generals, the 36 Heaven spiritual generals, and the strongest 4 direction generals surrounded the demon monkey tightly with all kinds of immortal artifacts and spiritual treasures. Except for the ones who descended to capture the mortals, the remaining soldiers out of the hundreds of thousands of immortal soldiers and generals all gathered here. Wastrels. They are all wastrels. They can't even arrest a group of mortals. Wondrous spell! High Holiness stared at the demon monkey coldly and found that the latter was watching the battlefield on the ground, which infuriated him even more. At this moment, you even have the leisure to watch others? Think about what will happen to you. Heaven spiritual generals, Earth spiritual generals, the 4 direction spiritual generals, and immortal soldiers from all families, listen to my command. Go and capture the demon monkey for me. As you wish. Hearing his command, tens of thousands of immortals moved together. A mere demonic immortal dares to fight the heavens. Regardless of where you come from, today, you'll be turned into dust with the land under you. For average mortals, every single immortal was an unimaginable great existence with ultimate superpowers and spells. They could rarely meet their opponents this time. At this moment, all these immortals swarmed up, unleashing all kinds of immortal spells using wind, fire, thunder, and lightning, darkening the whole battleground. Even the masters of the immortal families might not be able to survive these attacks, let alone the minor demonic god in the mortal world. Countless immortal soldiers dressed in shiny silver armor stood in neat formations, looking like a huge silver cliff hovering in the air. As fierce yells sounded, thunderbolts rose above thick clouds in all directions, and spiritual light beams shot 10,000 meters high, illuminating the spiritual figures who were as high as heaven. Some immortals had bodies as giant as mountains, some had spiritual lights around them that were as dazzling as burning sunshine, some had spiritual artifacts with profound and mysterious powers, and some even stood on heavenly dragons and were dressed in great armor, looking unrivaled in their godly magnificence. 27 of the Earth's spiritual generals took the front and charged forward with intense murderous aura, spreading over 90,000 acres. While driving dragon-drawn chariots and holding immortal treasures, they dashed from all directions. A spiritual general crashed his heavy halberd at Sun Wukong's face. Then, he saw the demon monkey lifting his right hand and reaching at his ear before drawing out a slim rod with shiny golden light. Compliant golden hooped rod. He pointed the rod at the sky. The tight siege on the battleground suddenly split open. Although it looked like Sun Wukong was tightly surrounded from above, the situation changed too fast. The huge rod grew in the wind, sending a spiritual general who was holding a heavy halberd flying backward like a cannonball. All the iron-like formations made of tens of thousands of immortal soldiers dressed in silver armor shattered. Then, figures were sent flying backward from the center of the battle one after another. Meanwhile, a rod could be vaguely seen spinning with blurry shadows, attacking like a dragon that was shooting out of the ocean and withdrawing like a dragon returning to the abyss. Instantly, many figures were sent flying like the water drops from a shower. All the immortal soldiers saw this scene in horror as the huge golden hooped rod grew so tall that it reached the end of the heaven and earth and then swept at them. Boom! With continuous loud noises, the immortal array formed by tens of thousands of immortals was broken into two halves in the blink of an eye. The immortals fell from the sky like raindrops in a storm. Heaven's spiritual generals. Wondrous spell High Holiness's face was dark. Demon monkey, despite your great abilities, can you escape from the heaven-turning cauldron of my Ying immortal family? One spiritual general dressed in golden armor yelled furiously as a three-legged green cauldron flew out from his hand. Engulfed in green mist, the cauldron contained dim Hundun energy as if it was as heavy as the heaven and earth. Like a prehistoric mountain, it crashed down with vicious force. The compliant rod grew as tall as a heaven-reaching pillar and struck down. A huge sound resonated in the heaven and earth. The misty green cauldron cracked in the middle. The second strike hit the center of the cauldron, making it explode with earth-shaking huge sounds. As his immortal treasure was destroyed, the heaven spiritual general felt it in his body, and his face turned white as if he had been struck by a thunderbolt. Try and take my vital spiritual gold sword. Take my heavenly immortal aurora. Take my transformation godly blade. 16 heaven spiritual generals surrounded him and launched streaks of immortal light one after another with world-destroying presence. Regardless of how powerful you are one man. With so many soldiers and generals with us, I'll see how many rounds you can last. The moment he said it, the Monkey King who was dressed in golden armor plucked a handful of monkey hair and blew it at them. Then, countless Monkey Kings appeared around them in the sky and on the ground, striking down with the golden hooped rods and shattering countless spiritual treasures and immortal artifacts as if they were glass and jade cups. At this moment, even the lofty heaven spiritual generals were frightened. They felt like they weren't seeing a monkey but an unrivaled battle god. Having lived countless years and experienced countless battles, they had never seen such a horrifying god who could destroy the heaven and earth with an iron rod. What kind of god is he? High Immortal, the Four Direction spiritual generals looked grim as well. At this moment, wondrous spell High Holiness remained calm, but his eyes revealed a chilly light. Good demon monkey, today, you must die. 4 spiritual generals, help my ultimate spiritual figure. The Four Direction spiritual array took shape, and wondrous spell High Holiness gathered all of his ultimate wondrous spells together. When the golden hooped rod fell, wondrous spell High Holiness vanished from the mortal world. Spiritual light surged up in the endless void. Beyond the sky, the white clouds opened and revealed a godly figure who was taller than 30,000 meters. Heaven Holy spiritual figure. In great horror, the immortal soldiers and generals watched this true immortal whose head and feet touched the heaven and earth respectively. All the people including the immortal soldiers and mortals on the ground stopped fighting subconsciously and looked up at the horrifying spiritual figure that went beyond their imagination. Is this an immortal? The power of the prehistoric immortal families were greater than all mortals' imagination. At this moment, everyone felt like the mortals were just a drop in the vast ocean. Before them, humans were indeed tiny and insignificant. An extremely huge hand extended from beyond the sky and reached for the infinitely small monkey. No one could escape from this ultimate spiritual figure or this vast and horrifying power. It looked like a tribulation appeared under the heaven mandate. Cloud somersault. Suddenly, everyone saw a figure who was stepping on clouds slip from the sun, blocking a huge hand and shoot upward. The golden hooped rod shot out like a sharp arrow and grew 10,000 times bigger in the air. The rod that was as thick as a heavenly pillar whipped up roaring heavenly winds and then blazing flames. Stepping on clouds, the small figure who carried the huge rod struck it down with vicious force. Everyone saw that the spiritual figure's head cracked, and a drop of golden immortal blood fell from the sky, shaking the whole universe. Not only the mortal world, but the innumerable immortal sea shook violently, and the ocean of clouds swept backward. Charge! Attack! Seeing this sight, countless cultivators and warriors charged with hoarse yells, looking like surging ocean waves. As if the horn for the counter-strike was blown, countless cultivators and warriors charged at the enemies fearlessly, scaring the immortals both in the sky and on the ground. At least in 10,000 years, people would always remember this rod strike and the figure standing proudly before all immortals and looking down at the heaven and earth in defiance. They would always remember the name the great sage, heaven's equal, Sun Wukong. Chapter 867. We're never afraid of a technology competition. These people were facing demonic gods who were far more powerful than them. On the huge heaven-devouring turtle, the light beams coming off the godly swords illuminated the heaven and earth. The source of murderous presence has been destroyed. On the vast ocean, the pure white light shone from the heavenly mirror. Under its light, a sword energy beam shot into the weak point of the huge heaven-devouring turtle. The demons who blocked us have been killed. Start targeting. It was a desolate scene on the huge turtle. Led by Nalan Hongyu, the cultivators and warriors who were covered in blood panted heavily as they stood over the demons' corpses that were lying all over the ground. Then, sword energies surged up and condensed into a huge heavenly sword in mid-air, striking toward the vital joints of the turtle. Fire! In the roars of the ocean, circles of destructive lightning energy lit up in the huge cannons that were sitting on the bow of the vital magnetic wind thunder battleship. Looking down, people saw several bright blue light beams tearing through the gloomy ocean and attacking the turtle's joints with accuracy together with the cultivators on the back of the huge turtle. Getting attacked from all sides, all four legs of the turtle were severely injured in the blink of an eye. The true power doesn't lie in physical bodies. The inner determination and unyielding spirit that can withstand countless hardships are the source of true power. On this battlefield, there weren't any great heroes or immortal gods as on the other battleground. Regardless of how bright their sword energies were, they were only little sparks in the heaven and earth. However, they were trying to use these small sparks to illuminate the dark world. One person might not be able to achieve it, but how about a group of them? After receiving severe injuries in its four legs, the huge heaven-devouring turtle howled pathetically and sank to the bottom of the ocean like a collapsing mountain. The huge heaven-devouring turtle opened its giant mouth and revealed a vast space inside. It was the command space inside the huge turtle. With sword in hand, these people followed the retreating demon soldiers and killed their way into the giant command space inside the huge heaven-devouring turtle. In the past, the weak humans who were stuck between the gods and demons regarded them as natural catastrophes. Today, whoever dared to invade the mortal world would shed blood in the sky. Heya! With sword energies emitting radiant light beams in the dark, Nalan Hongyu took the lead and ran into space, followed by people from different factions. Heavenly Mirror, Wuchan Sword, with all kinds of godly artifacts and spiritual treasures and all kinds of superpowers. Nalan Hongyu and the others took advantage of the carelessness and overconfidence of the demon soldiers and killed their way into the space. They seemed to come into another small world. In this space, there were many complex paths, making it seem like a dim underground cave. Looking closer, the people saw squirming walls made of flesh. However, it didn't look like the interior of the huge heaven-devouring turtle. There were no impurities being absorbed and excreted, much cleaner and neater than the huge heaven-devouring turtle's stinky huge mouth when they first entered. Sitting on the throne of bones among the troops, the demonic god had a mysterious glint in his eyes. "My lord," a deputy commander looked chilly. "These humans are reckless. Give them an inch, and they take a mile. They even dared to kill their way in here." The demonic god sitting high on the throne of bones said coldly, "My ninefold darkness space is extremely complex. Even if they can come in, they can't get out without a map. Perhaps they will get lost in the space before we attack them." "Hee," another deputy commander said with a sneer, "after they killed countless demon soldiers, we must give the humans a taste of our great power." "After all," another demon said, "regardless if it is spiritual treasures, artifacts, or any other things, we're much more advanced than those humans." He, ha 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 ha. "Instead of taking the broad way to the heavens, they must break into our ninefold darkness that doesn't have a gate." In their long history, the demons had created countless advanced items that humans could never imagine. With that said, an visual appeared before the demons. "Even if we monitor them all the time like this, they'll never notice it." Through the spiritual spell visual projection, they were watching Nalan Hongyu and others. "Nalan! Brother Nalan!" At this moment, a streak of light from a mirror shone in the ninefold darkness space. Nalan Hongyu turned his head and saw that it was Lan Mo who was holding the authentic heavenly mirror. At this moment, except for Team 1 led by Nalan Hongyu, others were all lost in the space. "There's something strange in this space." Nalan Hongyu looked grim. "We might have entered a trap set by these demons." After they cut off the turtle legs and killed their way into this space, Nalan Hongyu, a veteran general, had sensed a weird presence. Cackle. The demon generals in the command center snickered again as they saw that their enemies were indeed trapped. "It doesn't matter." At this moment, Lan Mo took out his communication jade and shook it. Soon, it showed a strange and crude map. It looked like a map in the games. Of course, if Fang Qi was here, he would find it similar to the Google Maps in his previous life. The map showed their current position and direction that they were facing. "This is the map function that we, the Wu-Daist Alliance, newly developed. Under the guidance of the heavenly mirror, I drew a small part of the map. When we finish this part, we can use QQ communication to share our location with other people and upload the map at the same time. It will soon show the locations of other people according to their signals. I believe that we'll find each other very soon." Seeing this, the demon general in the command center froze. "QQ communication. Location sharing. What's that? Hurry!" The demon general's face turned livid. "Activate spiritual confusion array to disturb the spiritual essence and interrupt their communication." "Yes." Soon, Lan Mo shook his communication jade. "Ugh! Strange. There are no signal. What should we do then?" Zhongwu asked. "It doesn't matter." Lan Mo said, "This is the newest version of the military communication jade developed by the Wu-Daist Alliance, and it can process all kinds of signals at the same time. I'll change to electromagnetic signals. Hurry! Activate darkness magnetic aurora to interrupt their communication." The demon general sneered, "Do you think that you can use it by changing signals? A mere piece of human technology dares to compete with the technology of our clan." "Hey!" Lan Mo shook his communication jade in bafflement. "Even electromagnetic signals are blocked. I'll try the light wave, issue the order to activate the darkness connecting array. I'll try the radio waves, activate Black Thunder Ebony Water Array. I'll change to infrasound wave, activate. I'll try ultrasonic wave this time. These humans, where did they get so many communication methods? Dumbfounded, those demon generals stared at the spiritual spell visual projection before them as the mortals tried different signals on the communication jade and finally got a good connection. Chapter 868 Gods and Demons are all defeated. In the place where Nalan Hung Guyu and the others were standing. I have a feeling that someone is eavesdropping on our conversation, Lan Mo said. The new signals that we switched to were great in the beginning, but now it's lagging again. Do you have a way to stop it? Zhongwu asked. Of course. Lan Mo said, when the great sage studied in the mountain of mind and heart with his senior brothers, he learned many unorthodox small spells. I'll cast one. In the next moment, the demon generals in the command center began watching a silent movie. A while later, the silent movie turned black. What is going on with these mortals? A demon general roared. This was totally different from the information that they had on humans in their memories. The murderous presence is gone. The Cultivator Alliance has scouted the inner structure of this demon turtle and the origin of these demons. They found that the spiritual essence that it devoured mostly flowed to these places. I've marked these points on the map. Lan Mo continued to study the map. Different from the Anton raid, even if we cut off its energy, we won't be able to do great damage to the strength of the demons in here. But Academy Master Gu and other cultivators discussed it and found something. After we get familiar with its structure, we can secretly use this tremendous energy in the space and form the 36 Tiangang sword array that Shu Mountain Sword faction used to subdue the almighty demon lord. If this array is built, it will give you all a great boost. At this moment, when these people looked at each other, their eyes were full of glints of self-confidence. The sword array that could subdue the almighty demon lord, and it would be powered with such a huge amount of energy. Perhaps this time, they would use their actions to tell their enemies that human wisdom was infinite. Just like how they had found the weaknesses of the monsters that were far more powerful than themselves in the raids, this time, they also seemed to have found a solution. This was what they obtained after failing countless times in that virtual world. If we encounter danger, we'll need the raid teams to block it. Lan Mo said gravely, we'd better. He pointed at the center of the map and continued, we must monitor this place all the time. Of course. Soon, through communication jades, they shared the information with every cultivator and warrior who had to enter this space. They began working hard in the places where the spiritual essence went through to carry out the plan of building the 36 Tiangang sword array. At this moment, the demonic god sitting on the throne of bones looked even grimmer. The ninefold darkness demon general wasn't a small general with little experience in wars. Right now, he put away his arrogance and began to study the humans in a new light. Borrowing a path through the human world to attack their enemy by surprise was a key part of the plan, and he couldn't allow any mistake to happen at this stage. Except for the demons going out to guard the demon turtle, only a side general and a deputy commander stayed with him. One was a brawny demon god who was dressed in black stone armor covered in strange runes. The other was hovering in the air upside down and engulfed in a chilly presence. Its withered body looked like a corpse that recently died. The demonic god finally walked down from the eternal-looking throne of bones, and its surging demonic presence instantly shook the entire ninefold darkness space. At this moment, an abyss demon with an iron-like black body rushed in. He was followed by a figure who was covered in blood. With blood-red eyes and low hoarse roars, he looked like a demonic god from hell. About to walk out, the three demonic gods in here froze and looked at these two. Who are you? Are they our peers? But we have never seen any demons looking like these two. The demonic god covered in blood said, Who am I? I'm King of Enhancement, King of Unboxing, and the father of the King of Black Iron. You asked me who I am. Outrage break! The huge sword crashed down with surging lava. You two deal with the demons on the sides. Leave the middle one to us. At this moment, two more voices sounded. Two more teams killed their way into this place. The leader had 5 godly swords spreading behind him like wings, and another had slightly closed eyes and held a sword engulfed in jade like thunderbolts. Clap! 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 At this moment, the demonic god who had horns on his forehead and distorted facial features applauded. I admire you for finding this place in such a short time. But, his eyes turned cold. What kind of confidence drove you to appear before me? Right now, they were standing in a vast underground space. The demonic god roared as his bulging muscles expanded. In a short time, he transformed into a giant as tall as 300 meters. Its horns almost reached the top of the space, and the ground shook with each step its huge body took. Its body was still growing until the top of the space was pierced and shattered. An extremely huge demonic god stood on the back of the huge heaven-devouring turtle. When he stepped into the ocean, waves surged up and shattered the surrounding spiritual ships like cannonballs. Even the remaining vital magnetic wind thunder battleships were battered and on the verge of breaking. As if bedlam broke loose, demon soldiers swarmed out from the broken space in large groups. Their number was even bigger than before, blocking the sky and covering the ground. Kill them all! At this moment, who could block such a horrifying demonic god? Yells and screams rose continuously. At this moment, the demonic god from the ninefold darkness struck the deepest fear into their minds. It was undefeatable and unrivaled. Even the huge vital magnetic battleships looked as small as its hands and were shattered by one touch, let alone mortal bodies. Today, I'll show you the price that you must pay for angering with me. However, at this moment, 36 golden light beams lit up at the feet of the demonic god. Corresponding with the positions of the 36 Tian Gang, the spiritual light beams connected and moved like stars. Then, from the space beneath its feet, sword energies rose like a group of stars. What's that? The endless sword energies gathered above its head, and they formed a huge Tai Chi yin-yang pattern in the sky. The tremendous spiritual essence was drawn out and gathered in the sword array. Although humans couldn't possess such huge spiritual energy, the sword array could contain far more spiritual essence than humans. With a sharp yell, a figure flew up into the high sky while stepping on a sword. You drew out such a huge amount of spiritual essence from the heaven and earth and caused the imbalance of spiritual essence, exhausting the nearby areas. You killed at will and regarded human lives as that of grass. Do you really think that no one in the mortal world can stop you? Flying swords filled the sky, forming a sword curtain before blocking the sky and covering the ground. Then, a force powerful enough to scare demonic gods began to gather in the sword array. Like endless currents, countless sword energies gathered in one spot before transforming into a golden rainbow that connected the heaven and earth, falling from the sky. What is that? At this moment, even the demonic god looked horrified. He sensed the aura of death that he hadn't felt for countless years. In the next moment, an extremely huge golden light beam shot down. The golden light filling the sky and swept in all directions like heavenly power. On the other battleground, the extremely huge spiritual figure collapsed with booming noises like a falling gold mountain or a jade pillar. Kill. Following the great sage, heaven's equal, all the cultivators and warriors charged at the previously arrogant, lofty, and fierce immortals. Retreat! All retreat! In the sky-shaking battle shouts, countless immortal soldiers and generals from different families dumped their helmets and armor while they scrambled to run. They had never experienced such a moment in their lives. On this day, both gods and demons were defeated in the mortal world. Fang's new reward light almost engulfed the entire sea area. Even people from thousands of kilometers away could see the aurora in the horizon as if the sun had just risen and dyed the whole world golden. The 36 Tian Gang sword array of the Shu Mountain faction was designed to subdue demons that mortals couldn't defeat. It could be used by one person as Fang Qi had done when he used it to deal with the Nangong family. It could also be used by multiple people to borrow the heaven and earth's boundless energy. In the legend of Sword and Fairy 1, the Grand Uncle Master Zhongqing, who was trapped in the demon-suppressing tower, was one of the people who used this array to fight the almighty demon lord. In the legend of Sword and Fairy 2, Li Xiaoao controlled the array when his group killed the resurrected almighty demon lord. These veteran players were obviously very proficient in all kinds of games, and they mastered some aspects of the games. Arrays were used to activate the force of the heavens and earth. By taking the tremendous energy from the heaven-devouring turtle as the base of the array, the energy level of the array was now on the same level as these demonic gods. All the demons stopped what they were doing and watched the sight in horror. When the golden light faded away, the extremely huge demonic god stared at its chest in astonishment. There was a huge hole in it. Ah! An extremely shrill howl spread all over the heavens and earth. Then, it fell on its back. Huge waves surged up as its blood spread up to 1,000 kilometers away. Hurry! Escort Mr. Ninefold Darkness out of here! At this moment, the other demon generals lost the will to fight and scrambled to retreat with the severely wounded Ninefold Darkness demon general. The other demon soldiers either died or fled. They didn't even have time to take the huge heaven-devouring turtle with them. Many of the demon soldiers who were not able to flee died together with the footless huge monster in the ocean. It's finally over, the turbid sea water was dyed dark red by the demon blood. Everyone looked fatigued. Hurry and heal the wounded and count the casualties. Orders were issued. This time, both Half City and the new shop at the East Continent had great casualties. Gu Tingyun said in a loud voice, although the resurrection spell needs harsh conditions and is now in great shortage, I have good news for you. We've obtained a major breakthrough in the research of the vital spirit revival recreation that the Yimei faction used for their dead disciples. Even though we can't bring the disciples back to life as the Yimei faction did, we can soon direct them to reincarnate and begin cultivation again. For those people who had no factions, we won't let their heroic souls wander outside. Our cultivator alliance will help them too. In the new shop at the East Continent, faction master Fang Qi of Heavenly Faction also heard the good news. He said excitedly, now, our faction is truly powerful. Can we really do that? My goodness! Instantly, cheers spread to every corner of the world like a tsunami. For cultivators, if their vital spirits weren't destroyed, they weren't dead. Only at this moment could the major factions call themselves top factions with pride. Right now, covered in wounds, Fenghua and Yuexin said with tears on their faces, Master, even the dead can be brought back to life, why did we fight so hard anyway? I thought we'd die together, nonsense. Su Tianji rolled her eyes at them and flicked her finger on their heads while saying, who do you think your master is? I'm Fairy Su of Tianji Palace, the popular technical streamer. I hit them with a palm thunder from the left hand. When they didn't die, I hit them again with a thunderbolt from my right hand. She made gestures while she spoke. Even though they are immortals, your master can deal with them. Besides, those disciples of the Yimei faction looked like new people after they reincarnated, and they lost all of their cultivation strength, what a bother. Right. With sudden understanding, Fenghua and Yuexin looked back at the shop and said, then, after buying so many games, we'd have to buy them again. Aya. They patted their chests and said with great relief, fortunately, we didn't die. What are you thinking about? You know nothing but games. When you have time, you must spend more time on TV series. Okay. But, Fenghua said sadly, the great sage is now put under 5 phases mountain, yet. It's said that a monk who's going to the west for Buddhist scriptures will come and get him out. We'll see it soon. I wonder what's the background of the Tathagata Buddha. How come he's so powerful? Yuexin said, even with the cloud somersault technique, which allows one to cover 108,000 li in one leap, the great sage couldn't get out of his palm. While walking toward the teleportation array with Su Tianji, she rubbed her dirty face and extended one palm while saying, even if it's tens of thousands of times bigger than this, it can't be that large. You two are. Hurry back and heal your injuries. You can talk about this after you recover. Su Tianji immediately escorted the two pale-faced girls back to Liaoyundaist Palace. After we heal, let's go and watch Journey to the West together. I want to watch the great sage travel 108,000 li with the cloud somersault after he comes out. Okay. Okay. Seeing the great sage come out as lively as before was all they hoped for after watching all the dangers that he had experienced at the demon hacking platform, Lao Zi's elixir brazier, and in the palm of the Tathagata Buddha. The people with slight injuries were cleaning up the battleground. All of them were talking about their favorite topics while they worked. This place was in ruins, but they believed that the damage was only temporary, and everything would be better since they were growing stronger each day. Perhaps one day, they could fly under the vast starry sky on their swords, going to wherever they wanted. They would fly casually and relaxed, covering 90,000 li in one breath like a rainbow. At that time, they might be able to go beyond the starry sky and see how vast the universe really was. At this moment, Mr. Fang had returned to his shop, looking fatigued. He was looking through the spoils of war. During this synchronization with Sun Wukong, he had used 3 godly weapon fragments to trade for the one-time use of the godly weapon, the compliant golden hooped rod. Only half of the 6 godly weapon fragments were left. It was a big consumption. Fortunately, the system would compensate him with the gift bag. Task: severely punish the troublemakers. Completed. Task reminder: a large group of troublemakers will come to the new shop. Host must deal with it solemnly. Task reward: Carrier Rock 1, System Gift Bag 1, double coupon for the Cultivation Room *1, it will increase cultivation speed. Task rating: A+++. Hey. Mr. Fang was baffled since he expected the rating to be lower than the last time due to the casualties. How come the rating is higher? After all, there were 0 casualties last time, but he didn't get A+++. The only level higher than this was an S. Is it because? Mr. Fang glanced at the group chat and saw that people were announcing and cheering for the victory in the battleground outside Half City. Is it because of this? Do you want to claim this reward? Yes. Super yummy. Mustard-flavored seaweed. Durian candies. Stinky tofu. They didn't make great contributions on the central battleground, but some paladins and priests provided great assistance in the battle. Without the symbol of life provided by the system, the resurrection spell required many strict conditions to cast, but it had made great contributions. At this moment, a group of elves led by Elder Sewell was healing the wounded with the unique healing spells that they had learned. It's unbelievable, elf girl Sala exclaimed, the great sage was like a god of war. Even the players in the Kanglan City shop were talking about it. That great sage, heaven's equal, really showed up. Big Black Dragon Gulf stared at the people who were trying to describe the fighting scenes with gestures, and his big eyes opened wide. Did you see the havoc in heaven? That part in Journey to the West? I assure you that the battle was even more stunning than havoc in heaven. Saint Leiden gestured with his hands and said, he struck out his rod like this. His standing before him, Black Dragon Gulf shrunk his neck involuntarily as if he was afraid that the great sage would appear and hit his head with the rod. What do you think happened? He broke the head of that immortal spiritual figure, and blood flowed out. So strong, he is a real god. Unfortunately, his cultivation system and combat techniques are more fitting for the people in the East Continent. Beside them, Saint Willie said with a sigh, we can only get some inspirations. I wonder, they exchanged a look. Forget it. Let's go and play League of Legends. Let's go and play Dark Souls. People get their skills by practicing hard. Meanwhile, Mr. Fang was on the second floor of the shop at the East Continent. You obtained, Carrier Rock 1, System Gift Bag 1, double coupon for the Cultivation Room *1. He knew the great power of Carrier Rocks. Even though the carrier rocks had the shortcoming of not being able to protect Fang Qi, but it could recreate the complete characters from the games and movies and required only 10% synchronization rate with the chosen character, which was much less difficult than the 20% synchronization rate that Mr. Fang must achieve before he could synchronize with any characters in person. System Gift Bag. Since this gift bag had excellent quality, Mr. Fang had greater odds to find powerful items in it. This is good. At this moment, Mr. Fang was holding a purple silk-covered box in his hands in his own room upstairs. It was again the exciting moment to unbox. Mr. Fang put the gift box on the desk carefully and opened it slowly. Immediately, blinding golden light shot out from the box. What good stuff did I get this time? Items popped out from the system gift bag and filled the square desk before him. There were weapons, snacks, and items that were put into the system storage due to the limited space in the room. There were even. Mr. Fang glanced at the beautifully wrapped game disc. He grabbed it and read the description. Collector's Edition of God of War I2. After activation, I'll get the right to sell God of War I and God of War 2 as well as the conditions to obtain the tasks for this series. I got a new game. What else have I got? Mr. Fang looked at the desk and saw a wrist blade that had a strange shape. Looking at the blood-colored light and the godly blade engulfed in fiery presence, he realized that it was Flame Wave Blood Blade. Almighty Demon Lord. Chonglu. Fang Qi stared at the wrist blade dumbfoundedly. Flame Wave Blood Blade, this blade is made of the godly iron from meteorites and the Flame Wave Spring Soul. It's a demonic weapon that no human can handle. Using it will greatly increase energy consumption and reduce synchronization time. Please use it with great caution due to its great power. F***CK. He rubbed his eyes. F***CK. Ha 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 ha. Almost everyone downstairs heard the wild laughter from upstairs. What else have I got? Although synchronization with a character who had much greater cultivation strength than himself would greatly shorten the synchronization time and increase the energy consumption, and Fang Qi might be kicked out of synchronization mode after using 2 strikes. However, this weapon gave Fang Qi another powerful hidden card. What else? Snacks. There were bags of snacks on the desk. He dug through them and finally found a black rock. Carrier rock. At 10% synchronization rate, it can summon a character from a game, a movie, or a TV series for a certain time. That's all. Mr. Fang dug through the items and found that the rest were all snacks. While browsing the system interface, he knew that this task was completed. The good news was that another task, Challenger's Tutorial School, Intermediate, was close to completion, and it would end soon. At this moment, he heard a prompt from the system. The system is 60% upgraded. The expansion of Wrath of Lich King is completed. The summer gift bags in Dungeon Fighter Online are released online. The pool party skins in League of Legends are online. Considering the different customs, the summer game outfits for the people in this world were less exposed compared to those in the original version. New game and new expansion. And new gift bags. Mr. Fang looked at the sky outside with a loss of words. It was already summer, but there were no summer break in this world. While he was musing over this thought, Fang Qi heard a knock on his door. Remembering what had happened the last time when he opened the box, Mr. Fang had closed the door before opening the box this time. But now, he had nothing to hide, so he opened the door. Hey! Xiaoyu! Haven't you returned to your faction? Zhang Xiaoyu said, I've good news. We're having the summer break soon. Royal Father delivered many crystals to me and told me to study hard, but I have no place to spend them. Hee. Hey! Mr. Fang widened his eyes. You even have summer breaks. What do you mean? Zhang Xiaoyu said with a pout, we're very tired from studying in the faction. Each day after studying in the faction, we must play games. With such a tight schedule each day, why can't we have a summer break? During the summer break, we will have lots of free time after playing games. I can go to the elf forest with Sister Sala and others. I can also go and tour the Orc Kingdom. I heard that the Half City is organizing a so-called Ninefold Darkness expedition team, and our Heavenly Academy and Heavenly Faction are planning an expedition to the Void. I can join them too. Forget it. Those places are dangerous. Hey! As if discovering a new continent, Zhang Xiaoyu looked behind Mr. Fang and saw so many snacks. Boss! How come you have so many snacks that I've never seen before? Oh! Glancing at the snacks on the desk, Mr. Fang got an idea. Xiaoyu, if you promise not to go to Ninefold Darkness or the Void, I'll give you half of the snacks. Zhang Xiaoyu hesitated and then looked at the snacks on the desk before saying reluctantly, then, I promise you I won't go, then, you can have this, this, and this. Zhang Xiaoyu watched Mr. Fang split the snacks into 2 equal piles and pushed one pile toward her. Wow! In disbelief, Zhang Xiaoyu carried the snacks in her arms and hurried downstairs, afraid that Mr. Fang would change his mind. After putting them all on the tea table in the lounge area, she saw 2 exquisite bags with fruit pictures and words durian-flavored candies. In a translucent box were pieces of black tofu shiny with oil. Traditional stinky tofu. There were also 2 exquisite bags that had pictures of seaweed on them. Mustard-flavored seaweed. At this moment, most people had finished cleaning up at the battleground. Su Tianji and the others returned to the shop, and their eyes lit up at the snacks on the desk. Xiaoyu, you bought so many snacks. The shop owner gave them to me. Seeing the expectant gazes from Su Tianji and the others, Zhang Xiaoyu said bashfully and reluctantly, would you like to have a little? Can we? Okay. Xiaoyu, you're so nice. Chapter 871 This sounds fishy, the Void Plan. These elves especially liked fruits. Su Tianji picked up the box which looked like the box for spicy sticks that were sold in the shop. What are these? Tofu that tastes like spicy sticks. Zhang Xiaoyu picked up a bag of seaweed and said eagerly, I've never seen this before, but it looks good. I'll try this first. Wow! The elves were thrilled. They had heard about these snacks that weren't for sale in the shop, but they had never tasted them before. They were in luck today to try the delicacies that others couldn't have. After all, these snacks were not for sale, and it was the only opportunity for them to eat such snacks. At this moment, other people in the shop glanced at them enviously. Then, I'll open this box. Su Tianji said cheerfully. Me too. Sala and other elves each took out a candy. They unwrapped their snacks eagerly. I'm eating it. At this moment, Zhang Xiaoyu tore open a small packet of seaweed and almost instantly stuffed a few sheets of seaweed into her little mouth. At the last moment, she suppressed her impatience and took a small bite delicately. Instantly, her little pink face changed color. Then, a weird stinky braised taste together with an indescribable pungent taste began to spread out. It felt as if they had opened Pandora's box. As if someone dropped a biohazardous bomb into the lounge area, the elves' faces turned yellow at the smells. This is... what? Pooh. 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 Zhang Xiaoyu's little face turned bitter at this pungent and spicy taste. Water. I need water. While fanning at her little pink tongue, she hurried off to find water. So stinky. Sala covered her nose, feeling suffocated. Dizzy from the stinky smell, Su Tianji closed the box lid with difficulty, and her face turned green due to suffocation. She turned her head and saw that all the other people in the shop had moved more than 30 meters away from them with their hands covering their noses. Their envious expression changed, and it looked as if they had seen a ghost. They had a feeling that this group of people might be eating some poop together. Unlike them, the faction masters, elders, and leaders such as Gu Tingyun, Zhongwu, Zika Spiritual Master, and even demonic woman Ning Bai had many pieces of business to tend to. After all, Mr. Fang's job was managing the shops, and the player's job was playing the games. The other stuff also needed attention and management. At this moment, Ning Buletin was supervising the wardens of Half City while the latter interrogated the captives from the innumerable immortal sea and ninefold darkness. Meanwhile, the faction masters and elders of different factions were talking about the subsequent plans. Even the West Continent sent representatives to join the discussion. The innumerable immortal sea was even more busy. Wondrous Spell High Holiness was a top figure among the elders, not only in the Gui family but in all other families. In the expedition that he led in person, he was wounded severely and forced to retreat in defeat. This incident had a great impact not only in the innumerable immortal sea but in the whole heavenly realm. Meanwhile, in the ninefold darkness the fierce generals led by ninefold darkness demon general tried to borrow path in the mortal world with the huge heaven-devouring turtle to launch a sneak attack at the heavenly realm, but the moment they landed, they were driven back in defeat. This news had swiftly spread all over the demon army of ninefold darkness. In the Gui family in the innumerable immortal sea, Wondrous Spell High Holiness stared at the distance coldly with squinted eyes. The moment we moved, we encountered a monster with a hairy face and a protruding mouth. I don't believe that such a powerful demon monkey exists in the mortal world. Is it a demon from the ninefold darkness army? What's their scheme? In the ninefold darkness army, the ninefold darkness demon general knelt inside a grand palace despite its severe wounds. A gloomy voice came from the endless darkness before it. You were ambushed the moment that you arrived in the mortal world, and those humans' power was far beyond your imagination? Perhaps it was an ambush set by the godly court. Wondrous Spell High Holiness said, this whole thing feels fishy. We'll make a decision after I report to the godly court and a thorough investigation is done. The voice from the ninefold darkness said, this must be a scheme. I'll put your defeat aside for the moment. Find out the background of the human masters whom you encountered in the mortal world and find a way to redeem yourself. Report. Meanwhile, in the innumerable immortal sea and in the ninefold darkness, they both received a report. 2 of our captives were sent back with a message from the Cultivator Alliance in the mortal world. What message? The people in both places turned dark. Bring them in. The 2 captives knelt and delivered the message. They said they would break any clause extending into their world. They said, we never start wars, but we'll do our best to fight you if you want wars. The people from the 2 places instantly turned livid. Outrageous! They are so outrageous! What shall we do, High Holiness? An immortal from the Gui family in the innumerable immortal sea asked. They knew who their opponent was without thinking. But I still feel like, there's something fishy. Wondrous Spell High Holiness said coldly. In the godly palace, the god who was dressed in 5-colored godly armor read the intelligence report that the godly palace had just received. News came from the godly court. They decided to bide their time. The god of radiant light sat on his godly throne with no emotion could be seen on his face, and he said, I'm afraid even they are suspicious that the ninefold darkness army is behind it. They will have peace talks with the mortal world and pay ransom for the captives. They will give the humans some benefits to steady them. After the truth comes out, he said with a chuckle, it's a good plan. After they find out the truth, I'm afraid that the mortal world will become the new battleground between them and the ninefold darkness army. High Holiness, the mortal world, also demanded us to clear the Thunderbolt Zone in the Void. Thunderbolt Zone in the Void. Wondrous Spell High Holiness said with a sneer, what a joke. Tell them that this zone has come into being for a long time and is a zone of its own. Thus, it isn't easy to clear. Aren't they very powerful? They can pass it if they are able to. If they can't, it's not our fault. The people living in the innumerable immortal sea had blood sacrifice seals in the demon-slaying platform and thus could manage to descend to the lower region despite the great price they had to pay. These humans think that they are powerful, but how can they be compared with us? Meanwhile, in the Wu-Vai Daoist Alliance on the big square of the Daoist Alliance parked several cutting-edge spiritual ships. Now that the Cultivation Alliance and the warriors had saint-level masters among them, they began to carry out the Void Plan. Artifact Master Jun Yangzi of the Wu-Vai Daoist Alliance had a jade slip in his hand. The jade slip contained the key projects such as the portal to the alternate world as shown in Diablo 2, the warp technology in StarCraft, the void creatures shown in League of Legends, and the ascendance plan of the Kyanghua faction shown in the Legend of Sword and Fairy 4. Some projects were old research projects which had gained certain results. For example, there were portal and teleportation technology in Diablo 2 and the void energy in League of Legends. Some projects were brand new without any clues, such as the warp technology in StarCraft. They sat together and talked. Let's begin these projects first. For the cultivators, this was a grand plan, but a bit far-fetched for now. Chapter 872 Plans for Mobile Games. It was cold in the ocean during the night. Several black-robed cultivators slowly flew up from the bottom of the ocean and came out of the sea. Elder, guys. In the dark night, the cultivators cupped their hands and reported, our enemy seems to have sent many soldiers to guard the bottom of the ocean on their side. We didn't dare to venture too deep, but during our short investigation, we found that the spiritual essence in the nearby areas mainly contains yin and water properties on top of the 5 properties. There is gloomy and evil murderous presence in it, so ordinary cultivators can't inhale it to recover essence. I feel the opposite. The long-haired male cultivator dressed in a black cloak was Black Demon. The essence flowed more smoothly in my meridians when I was engulfed in the pure murderous presence. The heavenly book said that when the heaven separated the earth, the light essence rose while the heavy essence fell. We each chose one type of essence to cultivate, and there are few geniuses who can cultivate both and go back to Hundun. The speaker was the Nanhua faction master. It seems that we must rely on you guys from Half City to handle the ninefold darkness. Despite the disagreements between these factions and those cultivators in Half City, they were not mortal enemies and could put their disagreements aside to deal with the common enemy. While they were discussing the strategy in the depths of the vast pitch-black ocean bottom, hidden currents surged in the deep crevice. A pale blue array barrier lit up silently, blocking the strange and evil ocean demons from the opposite side from crossing the boundary. But at this moment, a surge of thick and black essence slowly flew out through the array barrier in silence without alerting the barrier at all. These stupid humans don't know the great powers of our clan, a voice sneered, but it seems like some grand masters are guarding this sea. We can bypass this area and sneak into the middle of the mortals. By then, no one will know our origins. Cackle. Ha 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 ha. In the depths of the dark and mysterious ocean where no one could see, horrifying demons shot out in all directions like ghosts. Meanwhile, on the island on the back of the huge heaven-devouring turtle, Black Demon said, we've broken through their blockage with the stealth spell and the teleport skill from Diablo 2, but it seemed to alert the demon soldiers. That was why we hurried back. But I think we can send a team of cultivators who excel in stealth and teleport into the plane of ninefold darkness, and they should succeed. Meanwhile, in an extremely desolate corner in the world, heavenly thunderbolts boomed while wind and clouds surged. Several figures floated down like immortals descending to the mortal world. Is this the mortal world? One figure glanced around with a cold gaze. My lord, we're not afraid of the mortals, but there might be a few evil demons that comes from the ninefold darkness. Please be careful, another one cautioned. In the group chat of the Cultivator Alliance, I think we can't just wait for them to move first. Gu Tingyun said, they can descend at any time, but we can't go up any time. Nalan Hung Guyu said, unfortunately, we know nothing about the demon-slaying platform that they use to descend and have no opportunity to visit and learn from it. Then, the only way that we can pass this void and truly know that world is, after a moment of silence, Xiao Ancestral said, I think we old guys can give it a try regardless of how dangerous it will be. Tell us your plan. Morning gradually arrived. Ow! Shen Qingqing stretched, feeling lazy in this mild weather of the early morning. It's almost summer break, right? She looked at people such as Song Qingfeng and Nalan Mingxiu who entered the shop with her. After the Heavenly Academy began to give its disciples summer break and winter break, the other major academies and factions copied this practice, thinking that their elite disciples needed time to obtain experiences in the real world and be up to date. After all, they had seen from the battle at Half City that the training in virtual reality, even though it felt real, was still not the same as training in the real world. In the games, the veteran players got used to not really dying and thus were not afraid. When they encountered some unexpected situations in the real world, they experienced some negative emotions that they hadn't known before. Therefore, the major academies and factions encouraged the disciples to build foundations in the virtual worlds and then move on to real practice battles in the real world. It might not be so urgent to the senior disciples who had experienced the real world already, but it was absolutely necessary for the new disciples. It was why most of the factions and academies found it necessary to take time during the summer and winter so that the disciples could experience the real world. Do all the academies demand the disciples to go out and obtain experience? Su Zixin and Shen Qingqing chatted during their free time before playing games in the early morning. We will have graduated by that time. Shen Qingqing and Su Zixin were senior sisters to the students in Song Qingfeng's year. Having known them in the shop for many years, they were very close. Lan Yan said, "It's this year." "Oh. I have poor memory." They looked embarrassed and amused. "Sister Qingqing, do you have other plans?" While making a bowl of instant noodles, Song Qingfeng sat down on a couch casually. Having been in the shop for years, they felt at home here. Writer of the official novels. The shop owner is using your great talents for this small job. I think it's fine for me to be an official novel writer. Shen Qingqing loved stories. I like this job. But what plans do you guys have after graduation? I plan to tour around for a while, Song Qingfeng said. I'll make plans after that. In fact, if they were not now playing online games or were just casual players, taking some time off occasionally would have little impact. After all, in most games, the players didn't fight each other in the first encounter as they did in The Legend of Mir 2. Therefore, there were many casual players. While eating instant noodles, Song Qingfeng asked Nalan Mingxiu casually, "Junior mistress, how about you? After graduation, I'll take over some family businesses." I plan to pursue some new business opportunities, Nalan Mingxiu said. New business opportunities? Everyone looked at her curiously. Yet, she took out her communication jade and clicked on a strange-looking icon, which looked like a smirk face emoji with a big open mouth. There was a dot in front of the mouth. Isn't it a small game in Xone? Song Qingfeng said in surprise. Pac-Man? But it looks a bit different. Yet, Nalan Mingxiu said solemnly, I've been talking with the Wu Vidaist Alliance about the feasibility of developing games on the communication jade. We plan to produce a kind of communication jade especially for playing games. I plan to name these games, mobile games. Mobile games. Surprised, the others said, it's a good idea, but if people are in the internet cafe, who'd play on the communication jade? After all, the rich people would choose to play in the shop, and those who couldn't afford to play in the shop would have no money to buy this device which was surely not cheap. If such fun stuff had appeared before the shop owner opened the shop, I think us young people would have loved playing it. But now, Song Qingfeng shrugged. It can only be used to kill time. I agree, Nalan Mingxiu frowned. The others looked speechless. Then, why are you still doing it? You'll lose money unless you can find people who are wealthy but can't play the games in the shops. But do you think such people exist in the world? Do they exist? Nalan Mingxiu looked up at the sky subconsciously. I think they might exist, for example, the others followed her gaze up to the sky. Their hearts lurched, and cold sweat popped out as they whispered, Are you serious? Then, they looked at the sky. You? Your imagination is out of control. I even have a name for it. Nalan Mingxiu's usually cold face now had a bright smile. It will be called Journey. What do you think of it? I'll ask the shop owner to check the final product. I don't think it's a long shot. Aren't you afraid of losing money? Things like this can't guarantee 100% success, Nalan Mingxiu said. Check what? What are you talking about? At this moment, Mr. Fang came over and sat down. We have a new game today, don't you want to check it out? On the small blackboard were the big words God of War. War. Seeing the system upgrade progressing as slow as a turtle and had almost stopped, Mr. Fang was at a loss for words. At this moment, Mr. Fang received a new task. System upgrade task, acquire many energy crystals. Task description, be a truly excellent shop owner and earn as much money as you can. Task reward, mysterious gift bag of a mythological TV series, contains the TV series activation right and a treasure from it. Mythological TV series? What myth is it? Mr. Fang looked puzzled. A thought dawned on him, but he didn't know if he was right about it. Forget it. Whatever. He needed to consider how to make more money. At this moment, Mr. Fang's system interface showed God of War series is open. You obtained the task to sell God of War game series. As with the previous series such as Assassin's Creed and Harry Potter, the activation of the later games in the God of War series depended on the sales of the previous games. The sequels of the old series were still being released steadily with a stable number of players and viewers. For example, the Brotherhood members such as Assassin Alina and Harrison in the Kanglan City shop had played each game in the Assassin's Creed series many times. At this moment, the shops released the new games God of War 1 and God of War 2 at the same time. God of War 3 and God of War 4 would be activated after the sales of the previous two games reached a certain target. Perhaps it was because the God of War series had been acquired from the system gift bag that had an excellent quality, or that the number of players had grown even larger lately. Mr. Fang was surprised when he saw the target set for the series. The subsequent task is easy to do, it only needs 5,000 activations, not to mention the old shops in Zhuhua City and Half City. Even the new shop attracted players from all over the world with at least 80,000 players each day, making the less than 50,000 computers in the shop not enough despite the multiple folding spaces. Mr. Fang thought that 5,000 activations were easy to reach. Should I open a few more branch shops? Mr. Fang wondered. For example, he could open one in the Orc Kingdom and send Merlin from the Kanglan City shop to recruit a group of orcs to help manage the new shop there. Perhaps, he could open a branch shop in the Lianshan Principality, which had been the battleground where they fought the Shadow Legion. By doing that, he could divert a large group of customers. Besides, some old shops could have branch shops. Li Weia and the others had trained some good employees for him in the past years. With them watching over the old shops, Fang Qi could send the experienced employees to manage the new shops for a while. While thinking about these issues, Mr. Fang rubbed his brows. It was no wonder that Fang Qi didn't get involved in other issues. After all, he had been an esports guy instead of a talented manager before he traveled through space. He was the right person to play games, live stream, and organize esports events. When he had time, he could even give planned surprise events. But now, he was overwhelmed by the management of his internet cafes, not to mention that he needed time to play games and increase his strength. If he forced himself to do more than these things, he would bungle them. At this moment, Nalan Mingxiu brought over 2 lapis cups and poured Fang Qi a cup of iced red tea. Want me to do something? Mr. Fang asked. How do you know? Nalan Mingxiu poured herself a cup as well. I've known you for many years now. Mr. Fang picked up the cup of iced red tea and sipped it casually. If you treat me to iced red tea without asking for a favor from me, I'd suspect that you are a demonic god in disguise. Nalan Mingxiu was at a loss for words. Very busy. Nalan Mingxiu tilted her head and looked at him while asking. Seeing that Mr. Fang was about to stand up, Nalan Mingxiu said, I do need to ask a favor from you, no one else can do it. I must tell you first that I won't do anything too troublesome, Mr. Fang said, or anything that needs too much thinking. For now, I won't do fights either. Besides, what do you need me to do? I don't need you to do those things. Hearing Mr. Fang's words, Nalan Mingxiu said with confidence, we have people to do the troublesome stuff. I'll do the things that needs thinking. As for fighting, when have I ever asked you to fight anyway? As for your last question, it's something about making money. Mr. Fang chugged the iced red tea and put the empty cup on the desk. I'm in. At this moment, the seemingly peaceful relationships between the mortal world and the ninefold darkness plane as well as the godly realm were full of hidden currents. Ever since those two realms were defeated, they sent scouts to investigate the real situation. Meanwhile, the cultivators and warriors continued their exploration of the outside world and the new realms. Those gods and demons that had only existed in the ancient legends, what kind of worlds were they living in? When the cultivators began to turn their eyes out of their own world, the orbits of the three worlds began to connect. For the gods and demons who lived beyond the sky, the mortals were weak. For countless years, they received the worship of these weak creatures who begged for mercy and kindness from them. Just like the rolling godly mountains where the godly palace was, some of the existences far beyond mortals were born after the heavens were formed, and some were born, even before the heavens appeared. Since the very ancient times, they had ruled over this heaven and earth. The gods who were born before the heavens were unrivaled existences and were born with the right to enjoy godly power for eternity. It was the same in the innumerable immortal sea and the godly palace. They lived on the tall godly mountains and looked down on the beings below them. In every respect, they were the perfect and greatest existences in the world. The innumerable immortal sea was defeated just like this. On the continuous godly mountains that had existed for an eternity and survived countless catastrophes, there was the vast godly nation where the loftiest gods lived. With her brown hair pulled up in a ponytail and dressed in dark red armor, she turned her perfect exquisite face to the golden light which was falling from the mountaintop, looking like a heroic godly statue that was gilded in gold. Different from other gods, the god of radiant light was a descendant of an ancient god clan. Isabella, the young Valkyrie, was the last one born in the world and also possessed great godly power. It's nothing to worry about. After all, wondrous spell High Holiness, enabled immortal in the innumerable immortal sea, is insignificant in the godly court. Behind her stood a priestess dressed in a pure white priest robe. No matter what, I'll know after I try it in person. She looked determined. I hope my opponents won't disappoint me. You'll descend in person. At this moment, Mr. Fang was standing in the cultivation room with the golden hooped rod in his hand as golden lights bloomed in front of him. An extremely huge hand slowly pressed down in the golden light. F***CK. Instantly, his vision blacked out. Synchronization was over. The Great Sage, Heaven's Equal. Synchronization rate, 0.6326%. Increased by 0.0002% in this cultivation session. Tathagata Buddha. Synchronization rate, 0.6326%. Increased by 0.0002% in this cultivation session. Do you want to continue? Yes. Boom. You were suppressed under the 5-phase mountain, the cultivation session is over. It hurts so much. This cultivation is so slow. After the session, Mr. Fang glanced at the progress. After eating the immortal peach, Mr. Fang wouldn't encounter bottlenecks in the near future, but obviously, even in the cultivation room, his cultivation progress became slower. With his cultivation strength getting higher, it was no longer possible to increase his power by several realms after staying in the cultivation room for 1 to 2 years as he had done before. Oh, let's use the double coupon for the cultivation room. Mr. Fang remembered that he got a double coupon as a reward. This coupon's time limit was 5 days, which were equivalent to 5 years in the cultivation room. After cultivating 5 days in the real world or 5 years in the cultivation room, he guessed that he could acquire double the progression. The current progress was so slow that even doubling it wouldn't be that fast, but it was much better than the current speed. After all, training in the cultivation room meant taking all kinds of beatings. If he used the double coupon, he would be spared of years of beating. Do you want to use the double coupon? On the system interface, Fang Qi chose to use it now. The coupon is successfully used. The double effect is now in effect. The 5-year cultivation time now increased to 10 years, and the time that passes in the real world is still 5 days. Fang Qi. 5 years and 10 years? Where's the double progression? Before Fang Qi could finish, a mountain-like hand pressed down. Meanwhile, in the Kanglan City shop it seems like the shop owner is quite busy lately, we don't see him much these days. I wonder what he's busy doing. Some elves, knights, and assassins sat together in a small zone on the left of the entrance. Booth-like seats and soft couches were very comfortable, they each had a mug of cappuccino on the desk. Oh! I don't have enough money now, I must do more quests. With long lifespans and great talents in battle skills and arts, the elves were usually not as busy as humans, but now. I always feel like I've become broke recently, elf girl Sala had tears on her face. In groups of 2s and 3s, the figures looking like aristocrats and officials in some empires sat in the private compartments. In contrast, the saint-level masters such as Sword Saint Wilson and World Mage Hematon sat wherever they could find seats due to being late all the time. It wasn't unusual for them to sit with the local residents of Kanglan City. It proved that the truly smart people always abided by the rules set by the shop owner. As for the less smart people, they were handled by other passionate customers without troubling the shop owner. Fang Qi did his best to keep the harmony in his shops, and everything went smoothly in each shop. Have you bought the newly released God of War? In the booth by the aisle, Sala and Rowling sat in the row opposite to their captain and another male elf. Sala controlled her blood elf warrior character to do quests on the Borean tundra with great leisure while reading the storyline and enjoying the scenery. Not yet, Rowling said on the side. The person sitting opposite to us is playing it. Elf Queen Kelebel plunked down on the couch beside Sala with a bag of potato chips in her arms. Then, she glanced at the screen across from the aisle. Hey? You can't find a seat. Sala put down her virtual reality headset and glanced around. It's a shame that the shop owner doesn't put thousands of new computers in the shop. I have business to handle in a few hours, but I've got to wait in line. Kelebel tore open the bag in a huff. I'll watch it for a while first. But how come God of Wars that they are playing look different from one another? There are God of War 1 and God of War 2. I think they are not playing the same one, Rowling said while playing World of Warcraft. Across from the aisle, the elves could see a black dragon head that was wearing a virtual reality headset. Nearby was a grey-haired old man dressed in a mage's robe and an aristocrat-looking middle-aged man dressed in solemn clothes. They were saint-level masters such as Black Dragon Gulf, Wilson, and Saint Lydon. Some of them were indeed idle. For example, a certain Black Dragon. Some had to squeeze time from their busy schedules to play games. For the saint-level masters such as Wilson, this game was indeed more fitting for them than Journey to the West. Of course, nearby, young people like Ron and Joseph who were about 14 years old were also trying this new game. This guy looks so ugly. Sitting beside the elves, Kelebel ate potato chips and watched the person across from her play God of War. On the screen was an ocean of blazing flames, looking like the catastrophe at the end of the world. It showed half of a man's face which looked grand, gloomy, and pale, with a strange red mark. Other than gloominess, this face emitted a presence full of bloody fierceness and aggression. Obviously, many people were playing God of War 1. Kelebel thought that this main character was ugly. Besides, he is also bald? Why does he look so murderous? As a peace-loving elf, she obviously didn't like this game. But since she had nothing to do while waiting in line, she continued to watch. Let's choose new game. Saint Leiden chuckled. As a knight, he liked the main character who was obviously a melee fighter. Of course. Obviously, you can't choose load, right? Beside him, World Mage Hematon glanced over. Is this that god of war? The young players also exclaimed, he looks powerful. The scene of flames dimmed and was replaced by a grey mountaintop, but the man was still the same one as before. This scene would probably remain in the memories of the players for a long time. The gods of Olympus have abandoned me. As the deep voice spoke, the view zoomed out and showed that Kratos stood alone on the edge of the cliff on the high mountain, looking like a hero who had aged. Now there is no hope. Kratos leaped down from the mountaintop. He didn't look like a god, he was more like a mortal who had been cornered by gods and thus embarked on the last journey to end everything. After all, Kratos was a mortal at the beginning. The scene changed with the narration. But it had not always been this way. Kratos had once been a champion of the gods. Time returned to the past. After only a dozen seconds or so, a tragic and indignant atmosphere engulfed the players. From a mortal to the god of war, the curtain of this man's life was lifted. However, in God of War, the system created this world with an ultimate difficulty level. Without lowering the difficulty through the difficulty levels, many players would never be able to handle the enemies in this game. Although God of War and Dark Souls both revolved around legends, they had different core elements. Besides, when the players couldn't pass Dark Souls, they could invite friends with ultimate skills to help them with rewards and work together. However, this practice couldn't be used in God of War, which was why the system version of God of War had designed several levels of difficulty. At this moment, Elf Queen Kelebel ate potato chips as she watched several players enter the game. Even the Saint-level masters were discussing. Perhaps, let's choose the second difficulty level. Frightened by the difficulty of Dark Souls, they immediately chose the Spartan difficulty level and entered the game. The story brought them back to 3 weeks before the beginning scene. With all kinds of questions on their minds, the players entered the game while feeling a sense of epicness. On the vast pitch-black sea, huge waves surged up in a violent storm as if some horrifying demons were running havoc in the depths of the sea. The huge shipwreck on the shore was full of monsters from the underworld. It was close to the shore, but the sea under the cliff was unfathomable. Suddenly, a huge head of a horrifying monster appeared before them. It was a huge snake head. More horrifying was that countless giant snake bodies coiled on the deep ocean bottom. It was the monster only existing in myths, the Hydra. In other words, the weakest monster that the players faced from the very beginning of the game was a monster from the myths. What's this? Is this person going to fight that snake monster? Elf Queen Kelebel ate potato chips as she watched the scene in surprise. In such a stormy ocean, a human would certainly die if he had to fight such a horrifying sea monster. Furthermore, its true form was yet to be revealed from the ocean. The Saint-level masters who were playing the highest god difficulty level encountered lots of dangers within the first minute of the game. Almost no weapon could inflict damage on the extremely hard scales of this monster. The blades of chaos were dual short blades forged in the foulest depths of Hades. The main character, Kratos, in God of War had the dual blades in his hands. The Saint-level players could feel the weapon's omnipresent horrifying power when they held the two blades. But even such a weapon couldn't do much damage on the nine-headed sea serpent. With great efforts, the players could only force back one of its heads. My goodness, how come they have to fight such a big boss at the very beginning of the game? Elf Queen Kelebel said from behind, can they defeat it? At this moment, Kratos was not its match. But don't forget that at this time, Kratos was also a champion of the gods, which meant that he had the 12 major Olympian gods behind him. After defeating one of the Hydra's heads, Kratos finally came to the depths of the extremely huge ship. A blinding blue godly light lit up as a giant god's face appeared before them. Everyone shook involuntarily. Even though it was only a shadow, the players could feel the vast godly power of the god behind the shadow. This was Poseidon, the lord of the seas. This god was worshipped by all the humans who survived with the resources from the ocean. Lord Poseidon. Kratos showed due respect. The bright blue face looked like surging ocean water, and one seemed to see endless ocean in it. Kratos, before you reach Athens, there is a task you must complete. This beast is Hydra, it has terrorized my seas for far too long. Your skills are admirable, but you will need assistance, you will need the power of the gods. Accept this godly power. In the next moment, the whole world turned into an illusion. The entire heaven and earth seemed to have transformed into a great ocean. In the vast surging godly power, horrifying godly thunderbolts crashed down from the sky and encircled around Kratos like snakes or dragons. Like the thunder god, he was bathed in godly thunderbolts. Following the ancient rules, it transformed into a god's wrath and turned everything around it into ashes. This was the magic power given by Poseidon, the lord of the seas. Poseidon's rage. This magic power. While Kel-Ebel stared at the magic power with widened eyes, the players such as Saint Lydon were also stupefied. Different from the character who was born with no power in Dark Souls, the players in God of War felt like they had the ability to destroy the heavens and earth. Magic power. World Mage Hematon almost danced as his eyes burned with maniac-like heat. I feel the power of the spell, this is real magic. Is this the magic power that gods can unleash? Let me get familiar with this god-level magic spell. I think, Hematon controlled Kratos, and his expression had never looked so dominant before. Indeed, the players had been extremely cautious when they fought with one of the heads of the Hydra. Now, when they encountered an attack that they couldn't dodge, they could just block it head-on with Poseidon's rage. Yes, a small mortal could fight with a mythical monster head-on. I feel like, I'm unrivaled. Hematon laughed and said, this game is so cool. So cool. Soon, he got familiar with how to use Poseidon's rage. When one head of the huge Hydra bit at him with fierceness, thunderbolts appeared like dragons as the horrifying godly power exploded in the form of godly thunderbolts like a god's wrath. The Hydra's huge head couldn't break through this godly power. Instead, it was forced back dozens of meters as the thunderbolts almost shattered its sharp fangs. Ha 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 ha. He laughed wildly. If he could master this magic spell in the real world, then... Behind him, Elf Queen Kel-Ebel lost her composure as she watched this great power. The saint-level masters such as Hematon laughed wildly as they played. With such godly power, who can stop me in this world? This game isn't difficult at all. In a while, I'll try the god difficulty level. Yet. I even chose the Spartan difficulty level. With such godly power, it's child's play to kill these small monsters. At this moment, an almighty god shadow materialized before them in the storm. Kratos, your next task is to kill Ares, the god of war. Okay. It's easy, what? Everyone fell silent instantly. Poseidon, the lord of the seas. Ares, the god of war, how come the names sound a bit similar? Whom do you want me to kill?